All right.
There's a lot of information.
Yeah. Makes you feel like you're in good hands, doesn't it? All right. What are you doing? Is it mine?
No, that's mine.
That's mine. Okay.
Okay, well, I'm going to call the regular February meeting of the Cincinnati Board of Park Commissioners to order. And we have all our commissioners present today. So all of our votes will be done by voice vote unless requested a roll call by one of the commissioners. With that, we'll move into, we have no public comments today. It is a beautiful day to be in the park, but it is raining today. So I think it discouraged people from coming out and seeing us this morning. I did want to comment that we did receive over the past month a number of correspondence input from the community. All of those have been distributed on a weekly basis to the commissioners, and those will be noted in our minutes. Our first order of business is an update by the Cincinnati Police Department. So welcome, Captain Swingley. How are you?
Very well. Good morning, Commissioners.
Thank you for being with us.
So I trust you had a chance to see the
Yes, sir.
stats report. So I'm just going to go quickly over the highlights. So once again, I'm Captain Dennis Swingley. I'm the commander of the Special Services Section and I'm the liaison for the Park Board. The fourth quarter police stats for the year 2022 are as follows. But bear in mind, COVID activity between 2021 and 2022 had some influence on the stats, as well as seasonal weather changes between third quarter and fourth quarter. So citywide calls for service had a slight decrease to 5.2% when comparing 2021 to 2022. As that relates to city parks, there's a 5.3% decrease in calls for service. Looking at calls for service from third quarter, which is July, August, and September, compared to fourth quarter, there's a 42% decrease. Likely due to park activity or in the fall and winter months, decreased activity. When we look at the top 10 parks, the top 5 are as follows. Mount Airy Forest had 58 calls for service, followed by Waterfront Park, Eden Park, Washington Park, and Smale Park. Each one of these had over 40 calls for service. Changes to the top 10 list. Mount Echo Park moved out of the top 10 in the fourth quarter. A lot of that was due to working with the park board and increased police activity in the park as a result of some complaints that were being voiced. Fountain Square moved from 3 in third quarter to number 7 in the fourth quarter, with a decrease of 56% in calls for service. There were, again, 652 calls for service to city parks in the fourth quarter. The top 3 calls for service were general 911 calls, followed by investigation and hazard items. There were 15 offense reports reported in the fourth quarter, along with 14 arrests. These arrests occurred within 4 parks. However, 8 of those arrests were in Laurel Park. That continues to be the most frequent offense in our city parks. So we'd like to remind all our community members not to leave their valuables in their car, at least visible when they leave their car. So this completes my presentation, and we encourage everyone to get out this spring and enjoy our city park. Are there any questions?
Not a question, but a comment. I think that the increased visibility of CPD in our parks has increased and is very noticeable. So we appreciate from a park board standpoint. And I think it's no surprise that parks like Mount Echo, where you have come and you've put some statistics together, and you know that's a park that has had historically some issues, just improving and increasing the visibility of CPD in those parks, I think has done a great job. So I appreciate that.
Mr. President?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for the report, by the way. And couple of things. One is Laurel Park. now as a judge on, in the West End downtown,
Yeah.
Borough Park. That had, yes, that had 8 arrests.
Yes,
And
and
that-
that a breakdown of his arrest. I know some increased police presence around the soccer stadium, which is down there, or stuff like that. So that continues to be one of the top locations for shots fired
Mm.
and in the city, the West End, over the Rhine. So a lot of increased police presence to keep everyone safe.
And that's absolutely a good thing. It was just a bit surprising to me, especially since we put a lot of effort into that park lately,
Yes, ma'am.
had a renovation, attracting more people there. And maybe that has something to do with it, but I appreciate the presence there so we can keep that safe and people can feel safe going there.
Yes, ma'am. It's very important.
The other one that continues to just kind of bubble up for me is Ziegler. And it's like Ziegler Playground, and it continues to be on the top 10 list. Down near the bottom, yes. But I'm just wondering if there's any new insight about what's going on there.
It's mostly people hanging out, consuming alcohol. And it's like a gathering area in that location. So the residents want police presence there to keep everyone safe. And when the police are there and they see things, they take action. I think the community supports that to keep everyone safe.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And I think to give the city some credit as well, I think the city has taken some action in Ziegler to close one of the streets, one of the side streets that were there and enlarge the park. Is that not correct? It is.
Yep.
So that was in a direct response to some concern about activity down there. So again, great collaboration between city, CPD and Parks on that one.
Great. Thank you.
And Ziegler, it's such a heavily used park.
Absolutely.
I mean, it is packed all the time. And I think for what we see that is not going great there, there's a lot of great that is happening at Ziegler.
Well, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Just a really coveted park and a great asset.
Yeah.
Had that.
Any other questions?
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Positive report.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move into some business items. Approval of our minutes from January 19th. These have been updated for a few little corrections. Any other input, corrections, or additions? Yes.
Just a couple, and I mentioned to Tia, just some notes, cosmetics that I'll pass on to her. But I did have one question on the, it's very early on, and I just didn't remember this. In the acknowledgement of public comments, or in the last line, it says, and a future skateboard park update. And I just didn't remember it being skateboard. I thought it was skating that we talked about.
I think you're absolutely correct. Yeah. If we could just say skate
Yeah.
versus skateboard. I know in public comments, I think some of that related to the gentleman that came and spoke to us a few months ago.
He sent another email.
And he sent another email.
with an
Yeah,
Update about the skating.
yeah, but I think it's a skate park, not a
Yeah.
skateboard
Right.
park.
Yeah.
So we will correct
Yeah.
that and just say skate park. Any other, that's good point.
That's it. The others are cosmetic that I'll just pass along.
Perfect.
Thank you.
If no other changes, do we have a motion for approval? Movement as movement second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Thank you, Tia, for another very good job.
Thank you.
We're going to move into our information updates now. And Jason, you're first on the list again. Unless, is this order still okay, Jason? Okay, I'm sorry, Joel. Joel, you're first on the list for planning and design update. And commissioners, what I would like to do, you will see our action items A, B, and C relate to some things that are contained in Joel's report. So what I'd like to do, Joel, is as we come up with those action items that you're requesting, if we could take those during your presentation, so while you're there, we can ask questions.
Additionally, Mr. President, we'd like to add one additional piece. So we had some new information come in on late Tuesday afternoon or late Wednesday afternoon that I was able to mention to you because we were at 4 o'clock, but I was not able to mention to the other 4 commissioners. But it pertains to some improvements in a bid we got back for some funding at pickleball courts. And so Joel will mention that in his report, and then I respectfully ask that we then take a action on that as well.
Okay,
We'll hear about it in a second, but I just wanted to
super.
preview that we're gonna ask for that, and if we need to delay, we're more than happy to delay, but we're able to move forward quickly with that.
Perfect.
Good morning, commissioners. Good to be you all. Got a lot of stuff today, so I'll try to be brief with things. If you have questions about any specific items, feel free to.
Jason, take your time. You're doing a lot of great things. Don't feel any pressure. We like to hear what you're up to.
Awesome. The current initiatives, our project tracker is pretty much live. We're using it, Matt DeBookos, cleaning up some of the things that look a little, beta version and making it into something that's useful and easy for everybody to use at the director's level with Jenny and all of our division managers, so they can get in that and look at it for ease of use. So it's become very helpful to us. You'll notice in the packet that there are the 4 tables as we usually have, the completed, the in progress. We changed the name of one to board approved. That's the things that you all have already approved instead of initiated, because initiated hasn't quite meant, that you all have accepted those dollars yet and allocated those for those funds. We changed the name of that one to board approved to better reflect what those projects are. And considerations obviously are things that we're looking forward to doing in the next few years. There's a lot of projects on those lists, obviously. Completed things is a running tally of what we're getting done every single month. So please let me know if you have any questions on any of those or any projects within that. A quick staffing update on my end. We're pleased to announce that we do have an accepted offer for an engineer, a senior engineering technician to take the place of Doug Gornetti, which has been doing it for about 6 months. This gentleman is awesome. He brings some survey skill to us so we can go out in the field and get some quick measurements and add some quick design pieces in-house more than we can right now. So we're happy to have Matt Schiller coming on board with us, and I think he starts March 6th. So more great things to come. We're still interviewing and accepting applications for the engineering intern position, which is a senior engineer potentially, or a younger engineer getting ready to take their PE that's already an engineer intern in the state of Ohio. So we're still actively pursuing folks for that position. And please send any good ones through our way. If you know any good engineers that are looking for a job.
And Joel, does that bring you with these 2 positions? Does that bring you to full staffing?
We're getting really, really close, sir. So I would say Jason and I have had conversations about a landscape architect, kind of to round out all of the disciplines that we may need. So that's one that we would explore for sure. And tied into my group would probably be at least a little bit of help with the grant writing stuff. Maybe not all of the grant writing, but someone to help with the technical things. So those would be the 2 folks that we'd love to have beyond who we're searching for right now. But we're getting a whole lot of traction, I'll say that. So Calc is coming to life. The whole upstairs is being used now and we're ready in that. Thanks to Andy and his crew for getting that ready because we got enough staff that we need more room. So we are growing, and with that comes the ability to do stuff quicker and better. So we're happy. Thanks to Derek and his team for all the work and helping to fill those positions.
Sorry.
Okay.
Just one memorandum of understanding update for you all this month, and it's a pretty easy one. Verizon wants to upgrade the French Park cell tower. It's just essentially adding new equipment for a new frequency for 5G to the tower. No major changes in visibility or anything. It's an amendment to the lease. I don't even think that it requires you all's action, but it was informative. I'm pretty sure that's correct. It doesn't require action. But just for your edification, I have a copy of that. It's not included in these minutes, but if any of you would like to see that, I can provide that. Just please ask. All right, getting into some project stuff. There's a whole lot. I'll go pretty quick. Like I said, if you all have questions, let me know. The Almus Park sanitary sewer, we have that RFP for request for quotation, actually RFQ out right now, and we expect to come back. We've already had the pre-bid meeting, and those are due tomorrow by close of business. So we should be able to report pretty quickly when and how that sanitary sewer is going to get fixed. Right behind that is the rest of that project that actually started that, the Alms Oliphant French Water Main Project. I've reviewed those plans and they're stamped back from our designer. We're ready to put that out for bid. That'll be a traditional bid where we go out for 3 quotes. We've got the time to do that. And we expect that to happen this spring as well, mostly by directional drilling for the purpose of not disturbing our trees. Burnett Woods, there are a whole lot of updates. I want to say thank you to all the folks that responded and sent emails to us a couple of days ago about a sinkhole. It's kind of on the other side of the park from the ones we've already got behind the Jefferson apartments adjacent to Jefferson. Chris McGee and I went out yesterday morning and looked at that. It's about a 2-foot sinkhole right next to one of our storm sewer manholes. So Bruce is already quoting some emergency repairs to the other ones already inside the park. We're going to add that to that scope for those folks to investigate, make sure there's no blockages or breakages outside of the pipe and get that fixed with the rest of them. So thank you to the folks that sent us emails. We appreciate that. It helps us get things done really quick. So
Are these storm sewers that you're talking about?
So 2 of the 3 sinkholes that we have, Molly, are strictly storm sewer stuff. And the third one down behind the nature center is involved with MSD. And they've written a whole report on that already. We're engaged with them in several different things with Burnett Woods right now. Retention and detention and upsizing pipes and all that stuff is being talked about with kind of a new lens, I think, at the moment. So we'll continue to update you all on everything that's going on with Burnett Woods, but there is a lot going on there.
Don't miss any opportunities with the lake. Right?
Absolutely. California Woods, there's 2 parts to this one, but this is our first action item of the day. So this one's action item C listed on the agenda. This is for the quote for armoring the part that will armor the road that was fixed last summer. So the 18 feet tall by approximately 60 foot long armoring with the big Lego blocks is what's going to happen under this. Tia, I think there's a picture of this still in there. That place right there is what's going to be armored. And Lita has told us that they can get to this in the next 3 to 4 weeks. We can do this under our stormwater contract, term contract, and so we can go straight from you all approving this to actually this to the city. These quotes $178,000 to do this. I've added a contingency and I'm asking for not to exceed approval of $200,000, which will come out of the California Woods funds, 1.5 million that's designated already for California Woods.
And Joel, this will then make that drive safe and prevent further erosion until your final fix is in.
Absolutely, Commissioner. This is essentially it could be a final fix. We don't anticipate it lasting forever there, but yeah, when you get a 90-degree bend like that with the river almost on a major tributary to the Ohio River that close, the amount of hydraulic force on that corner is crazy. So this will certainly save while we're going through the master planning process of figuring out how to do everything, which may include further realignment of that, getting it back to where it normally should be 50 or 60 feet. It's probably cut 50 or 60 feet over the years from where it is right now.
Wow.
And so Joel, what is the timeline for that?
4 weeks. Hopefully I'll send there or if you all approve today, and then we'll be coordinating with Alita next week for a pre-construction meeting.
Very good.
We walked the site with them last week, Commissioner, just to ensure there were no unforeseens or things now that all the vegetation is down. So Tim Alita pointed out a pipe that we had actually missed, and he added that to the scope at no additional cost to ensure that no additional drainage comes behind that wall. So I was happy for that collaboration, and I think they're going to do a great job.
Very good.
So Joel, this is one of ours under action item.
Yes, sir. I believe this one's C.
This one is C.
California Woods.
And the request is for $200,000. Is that correct?
Yes, Commissioner.
For this safety improvement. And those funds are coming out of identified 1.5 million that's set aside for California.
Yes, sir.
Does anybody have any further questions of Joel on the need for this or?
No.
If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
So moved.
Oh, I thought you just did that. Okay.
I wondered if I did it. We have a motion and a second to approve the staff request for $200,000. All those in favor, say aye. Those opposed? Okay, thank you, Joel.
Right now.
Mhm. Made it.
We'll get that in action as soon as we can. The next one is also an action item.
I do just have one question.
Sure.
So when I'm still trying to make use of these financial reports in this package. So when I look at these fund reports, where is the fund that we're using for this? I'm looking at these numbers you have in your report. Oh, I guess that's a project ID.
So if you would give it a board approved, Molly, because we have that via the council, I have this page 25. If you guys are.
Molly's referring to our financials at the end. I think this is part of the capital budget, right?
The financials at the end are probably the operating budget. It doesn't show the capital budget.
But that's the question, the 1.5 million that this 200 is coming out of. That's part of the capital budget, correct? Okay, so it's,
So do we get reporting on that through these packages monthly or from time to time?
The point that is through his presentation, Joel's presentation, but his report. And when he's showing those dollars at the beginning of in progress, and that's where those budgeted dollars are located.
20, page
Yeah.
23 through 29.
Yep, so the in progress, Commissioner, are the funds that have actual delivery orders assigned or purchase orders assigned within the second financial system. That's the first two pages that we're obligated to do 100%. The next two pages are the ones that we changed to board approved. Those are items that you've already agreed and acted on. We have funds sitting essentially waiting to be enacted. So this one is a great example of where this California Woods that's listed on page 25, 200,000 of that, the whole project will now become active and move to the in progress.
Okay, so just for process here, we have approved an allocation of the capital budget of 1.5 million already for California Woods.
These are the funds that we received at the tax windfall.
Correct.
You all accepted it from the city windfall in October, November of last year.
So now we're authorizing the expenditure of $200,000 from what the city has
Yes, Commissioner, that's
taken
correct.
into this capital budget.
Yep.
Okay, thank you for the
And there were
clarification.
two parts to that, I believe, so we separate that on that sheet as well. So there's a $500,000 ARP park restoration fund and a 1.5 million general fund. That's the allocation of that windfall. The 500, I believe, is tied to some of Crystal's trail restoration stuff, so this one will come out of the 1.5 million that you see there. And these are just an overview. If you all want to see any additional numbers on this, this is certainly a summary. We can add any additional data to these tables that you want to see in an instant.
For my seat, it's really hard to track what, when you propose to us, let's spend 200,000, I'm like, well, I mean, do we have that to spend? What have we already approved? It's very difficult to tie the financial view of this stuff together.
you might work with Craig and come up with, it is the one piece I think that's not tied together is the capital where you've got total capital authorized and how much we've spent to date. I don't know how granular we want to go, but
Need to be granular, but
Yeah.
really here's sort of my thinking on this is for the first time in the 2 years that I've been on this board, we're actually starting to spend money. And I just want to make sure I've got a grip on where these funds are coming from. If we've set aside funds, where we are in terms of what we've approved to spend.
Absolutely.
Because trust me, I'm all in support of getting these dollars out the door and paying for these projects that we so desperately need to fund. But I'm not feeling like I've got a grip.
I will offer this, and I think at this point, that I'll speak for myself and Matt DeBona. If you all want to come down and look through the brain, we will custom build a report with every number that you want so that you can see it in real time. What we've done here, Commissioner, is just the very bare bones of that report. We have the title, we broke it down to the park, and just the total that we're doing by park inside of each fund. Inside of the actual report, we have encumbrances updated weekly. Craig's team checks numbers on everything that we have to ensure that these numbers at the bottom of each of these are correct. So you have $15 million essentially in progress. That's stuff that has a delivery order already. Beyond that, the board approved things. At the bottom of page 26, you have another 15 million essentially sitting in the bank of things that we haven't enacted yet, very much like this California Woods thing I'm asking for.
so let me, for clarification, does the brain As we'll keep referring to
We
it.
don't have the project tracker is what we.
I have no problem with the brain. Does it interface with the financial record so that in one place we've got, here's all the projects, here's what we've
Yes, sir.
approved. And then next to it's the next line of here's how much we've spent against it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that,
Actually, the reason it took so long to build is Matt figured out with help from CFS how to interface their 35-year-old Excel sheet system.
yeah.
with something that we can bring this to.
So I would,
Cincinnati.
yeah, yeah.
They're
Which
larger.
Craig is beholden to and has to deal with. You know, not saying that it's bad.
Like
I'm
I
saying
said,
there's
we'll put together a report. All the data is there. It's just putting it in a nice summary that you can visually see. There is reporting available, but one of the issues with the, you can't report with the system is it's like a light system where Joel's system and his project tracker is updated weekly. So we'll work together on that and get that summary provided. Because one of the issues we have with this system is it doesn't tie out to a parent account number. So if you remember Tom Jones Commons, they're pulling funds from multiple project numbers and not tying everything together. This Joel's tracker ties everything together with a parent account, and we can develop that reporting that you want to see.
exactly right. So not only do we have a delivery order, but beyond that, if you had 7 or 8 different funds, like, and you didn't know what you were spending for an individual project, we can just show you per project by an additional sorting mechanism to say everything you spend on Tom Jones Commons, including these 6 different funding sources, is on this with 2 buttons. I can do that instantly for you.
Sometimes I dread asking a really simple question. No, let me just ask one more question. and
Sure.
I'll move on. And then maybe you and I can spend a little more time on this the next time we meet one-on-one and I can give some thoughts on what I think would be beneficial. And Jim, you've done many summarized reports and oftentimes they're the only reports that I actually understand. I do have a finance background, so it isn't to say that I can't understand financial reports. So if this is the capital budget, which I think that's what you're saying, this is the capital budget. Maybe it would help if we had a column or 2 here that represents, whatever phases are, we've approved $200,000. So I would think that we would have now available to spend.
Encumbered, yep.
Right,
So
encumbered, right.
So we could give you the encumbered, the expense to date, and the balance remaining. Those are the 3.
I mean, this would be
We can explain
really
this.
valuable.
Those are essentially your hidden tables. Already there, we just try to only give you the bare bones.
It helps us keep track, not just of what's available, but also where the project
That's
is
for
in this
accurate.
process.
Coming into this a year ago, it's like, how do we even track what we have and how do I even know how to inform you all of what money you have to spend?
That's right.
the question I ask myself.
And that's really the objective of the question is, what do we have available and what are we really authorized to spend?
Yes.
It's easy for us to say, yes, that sounds like a very important project. Let's approve spending that. But if we don't have it in the context of what we have available, then
I feel like we can tell you that more confidently
Okay.
than anybody ever has at this point, within a week at least. They CFS, I believe, Craig, is that weekly? They update those reports and that pulls back into ours.
No, we update the reports weekly, but the CFS is updated daily.
So they finance pools for us on Craig's team, inputs that into the brain for us. So we can manage that on the capital improvement side.
yeah, I think that would be really valuable
Okay.
and appropriate as us as governing body,
Okay.
understand and see.
I'll talk to Matt and put together a one and change it a little bit for next month to add the encumbrances and things. And then if you want more data from there, just keep asking.
Okay.
And
Okay, well- We've gotten it simple. We don't want to go out like this. We just
we started big. If you want more, we can add more quickly.
keep it simple. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Just one more question on this. Looking at the California woods, you've got the ARP and then the GFCO, general fund, I guess. What was ARP?
American Recovery Plan.
Okay. And then, so that's where where the funds come from, and then the description of what the work is to be done with that. So some of these have funds and some just kind of have the description of what the work is. Should there be, is there a reason for that?
Maybe is because those funds
All have direct funding from the name of
from
the
the
park?
state.
Oh, okay.
To that park, but it doesn't necessarily say, and this is how you'll spend it. but that's,
Yes, we'll assign different projects out of those. So now that 200,000 will have a couple projects fund from that with different delivery orders. We'll take 200 out of this and I'll call it a project, emergency armoring. And that will be a project. And then the remaining 1.3 will likely be used towards master planning and initial stream bank stabilization. That would be a different project. At that point, those will move into the in progress.
Gotcha. So as an example, Avon Woods, underneath that, it's road and parking for 45,000. Where does that come from?
I think that is a leftover project from my predecessors that was just set aside for that
Okay.
purpose without defined limits to the project yet. At which
Okay.
point, when I move that from here to there, we'll assess the need for that still and then move it with specific limits when we put it to the in progress. And at that point, when we have a delivery order, that name will then never change.
Okay.
We're obligated and assigned money under the in progress tab, which means you have a delivery order with the city purchase order. Now that number won't change and that description will match the actual projects.
One of the great things about the brain is that we've gotten to this level, which is that we can say, here are all the projects, here's what's left over. One of the things that we hope to do long-term is find out, I mean, and it's just the work of going through it, but there are several projects where we don't necessarily need that fund anymore, or we spend as much as we need. We'll be able to sweep those up and then put them back into kind of general money that we'll be able to then reallocate and assign to projects. So if the rest of California Woods, which we now have 1.3, or with the additional 500,000, 1.8 left, if we need 2.1, well, there could be projects like that in the past, they were just living in
Divert.
Craig's information
Mhm.
hidden at the city.
Not doing anything.
Yeah, I mean, they were there, they were available, but you guys didn't have the visibility to that. So what we're doing is we're bringing that into this brain so that we can better identify all those. Some of these projects are 3-4 years old. And then, we did 80% of it. We only needed 80% of it. And the fund just kind of stayed there. We're going to be able to better identify those and then use them for current priorities.
Yes, and that's a great point too. The fund number, Commissioner, we'll put that on this as well. So you can see the age of those funds just based on those numbers.
Okay.
But you're absolutely right. Some of these, you see in a few of them, like some of them have zeros in them. Those are things that we're pulling in from the city financial system, but we haven't cleaned up line by line yet, project by project. So
Okay.
you're seeing, we're showing all the work early essentially to show you and hopefully get you all to help us guide
How many
just like you were.
projects are in the brain? Ish.
If you count the PM inventory, 10,000, but things like this, probably 300. The PM inventory will be impressive when Matt's done with that, I promise you. That's like everything.
Preventative maintenance.
Yeah, the preventative maintenance inventory is the fifth tab to this, which you don't get yet, because it's every asset, $5,000 and up inside of every single park, so that we can actually plan. If you've got a $300,000 underground utility that's gonna need repaired, and it's gonna need repaired 10 years from now, I don't wanna come ask you for $2 million 10 years from now. I wanna ask you for, $200,000 every year for 10 years, so that we can budget that stuff and there's not just one hit. Those are the kind of things we're hoping to get to, which will further help us inform our budgets.
Or at least you'll be able to look 5 years out and be like, this year, we're gonna do these top 3 things. Next year, we got these 3 things coming. We know we got a 2 million one coming, but we've already set aside and we're ready for that so that it won't be a surprise. And then beyond that, for instance, we put a new roof on this building in the fall. That roof has a warranty of some length, right? Where in the past, great. But now they'll be able to say, oh, that's a 10-year warranty. Year 9, guess what we're going to do? We're going to inspect the roof. We're going to have the vendor out. We're going to fix anything that's wrong with it. So we get absolute maximum use of that warranty. And then if the roof has a 30-year lifespan, again, park commissioners and directors in the future will be like, all right, the roof was replaced in 2022. It's 2051. We know the roof's up for, and then we can study it then and say, maybe we'll get 10 more years out of this roof, or we know it's coming. And then we'll have stuff that's like, it's beyond its useful life, but it still is looking good. So we'll kind of know it's out there hanging instead of having the Brandon Center Carroll report, which is like, here's $75 million worth of stuff you got in different categories. We'll know to the year. This roof is a 30-year roof. We're at year 35. Great. It's a good roof. But we'll at least know that that's hanging out there instead of being like, I don't know, they did the roof in the 60s, we think. We'll have a lot better. And that's what Joel's team's doing to just really crystallize that. It's going to take several years and we'll be able to dig questions into it and be like, what's this one mean? Because I got Joel out looking at sinkholes every day instead of just looking at the spreadsheet. But what we're doing is we're becoming so much more advanced and so much more strategic. And I think long-term, it's going to pay dividends forever. It's really impressive what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Come a long way in a short time.
Yeah.
A long way. I have a couple of questions for clarification. On the headers, in progress, that means there's a purchase order with the city. Obligated money, okay. And board approved,
Those are things that we've either brought to you or money has been allocated either by the board or on your behalf by the city council and you've accepted. That you already have in the bank.
okay,
So the total of those two, you've got 15 million bucks in progress right now, and you have 15 million more that we haven't started yet.
yes,
That you've already told us to start. That's where we are.
got it,
I hope in 2 years, Commissioner, that board approved becomes only what you told me we can do in the past couple of months, not the past 3 years. You know, as we whittle these down, this should just be a transitional stage from what you're considering. We pass those boards. When the board passes this, it only transitions here until my team enacts it with a purchase order with the city. That should be what this is. Right now, you're showing the backlog with your
Yeah.
approved.
got it,
But there's also some transition in all of these. So for instance, if you look at the big
Sure.
numbers, 15 million of in action or in progress, it has 6.9 for Smale Lot 23. Much of that's been spent, but it lives in some different spot in Craig's books. So there's always gonna be a little bit of a translation between these two
sure.
because there's a very complex way that money moves around the city.
No kidding.
And so
And we show it to you when they're completed. We're starting to say that a project lives and dies financially in CFS. So when Craig tells me that the last bill's been paid and the project's closed out, only then do we put that on a completed tab. And you'll start seeing, you know, some of these get knocked off, that completed number will go up and up. And then hopefully the board approved number goes down because it's in progress.
Okay,
We're just considering things and doing things.
so tell me again what the zeros mean in that, in progress, for the board approved. As an example in All
Yes.
Park, what is it? Tell me what that means again.
So this one, the Wi-Fi
Yeah,
exterior cameras is part of a grant, so it's a placeholder, knowing that that's gonna be coming as a part of the grant, and it just isn't updated yet. When it's
Okay.
updated, that would be 300,000. We're just proactively adding things that we know that they're gonna.
okay,
And then sometimes it's a check for us the other way. So we have a zero number in here. Take, for example, bike trail is zero because that's a grant as well. We have it enacted. There's a couple in here I know that potentially are just placeholders or numbers that we haven't cleaned up yet. Projects that were placeholders 5 years ago for something that we don't know that we need anymore. We're still evaluating. Some of these, like Dayton talked about, maybe we may come back to you and ask you to reallocate these funds based on, you know, updated priorities.
okay,
And that's where, this is our work in progress still, essentially. Things that we haven't vetted yet to the point.
and tell me what considerations mean.
Those are pretty much everything else, either big picture items that are planned 5 years from now. Things that you can come to. Yeah. All of everything else, so that we're capturing pretty much all the needs of the community, the board, and our own staff, and just for consideration of the upcoming
Okay,
board approvals.
And
got it,
the funding status for Board Approved project, those funds have been identified
Yes, sir.
and
We're sitting in,
sitting somewhere waiting to be used. And the consideration funds are not yet,
that's right,
those are not funded. Those are just still ideas and directional
that's right,
that we want to hit.
that's not real money.
Yep.
But we approved the Torrance Parkway, Burnett Woods, the bike course fleet last month. Why wouldn't all those shift over into the board approved?
They will.
They
As
will.
those things are run through the system, and sometimes with the things that certainly for fiscal year 24 and 25, those won't be until the budgets are approved, I believe downtown in like June.
So you're saying those don't move based on actions taken here at this meeting? They move based on where they are in the system
We
process?
verify that through the system
Okay.
based on action that you all have taken. That's when it releases.
As I said, we're marionettes.
Want to run screaming?
Yeah. Well, and this is great conversation.
Yeah.
Because the good news is you've put
Yeah.
information together that we
Yeah.
now have visibility into. And trust me, nobody up here wants to have 10,000 projects on a report. And so this is great summary, but now we're naturally going through this and saying,
Absolutely.
wow, now that you've got this,
Yeah.
careful what you ask
Right.
for.
information breeds more questions.
Yeah.
But as I said, though, this is a little bit of a snapshot. And so
Yeah.
those things will move over and we at least know where they're at on all of this. We can say, oh, wait, but part of it is that it's not it's not automatic. Where the money really is in Cincinnati Financial downtown. And then Craig and his team, based upon your actions, move stuff over, and then this draws from there. So sometimes there is a delay on things. It's just natural with you guys vote,
Mhm.
Craig does his work, then there's a delay down there, and then Joel's piece pulls that information to the brain. So there is just a natural delay in it, but everything is on one of these tabs and will slowly move through the tabs.
Yeah.
But there will also be some human error to it too. And so there'll be some titles that don't necessarily line up right. And part of that's just, again, I got Joel out looking at sinkholes, not just going.
Yeah.
So, exactly.
It's looked better every month.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely.
Without a doubt.
We'll add in the funding.
From a process standpoint, Burnett was a great example when we all approved that last month. Next step is my team submits an ordinance to the budget evaluation committee that works with law. So it can be introduced to council, and actually that's going to be introduced to council maybe on Monday or the following Monday. And once council approves, they will assign a project number to it, and then it'll get loaded into the city's financial system, in which they'll start showing
I see, okay.
within the in progress.
So for the commissioner, the lag is a month, not 5 years. That's what you may be a month behind in information, but you're not going to be 5 years behind.
Got it.
That's what
Okay, one more question. So in getting this work done, so that road doesn't get destroyed again, as I'm seeing this huge storm out there, when will it be able to be done?
California wood.
Yes,
Oh,
It's going to be done in the next 4 weeks.
in-
As soon as you all approve that today, I will issue a notice to proceed with Edlita, who advised me during the site visit last week.
great.
You know, and I'll take a moment because correct me if I'm wrong, but Joel has gotten in and determined that we have existing contracts through the city for contractors. So there's oftentimes contracts that are out there that we can piggyback and be part of,
Yeah.
rather than initiating a brand new
Oh,
RFP, RFQ, or LMNOP. Yeah, so I just want to give kudos to both Craig and Joel that they're finding ways where in the past there was always the answer, oh, we've got to go through purchasing and we've got to do this, got to do this. But we found a way to work through this with purchasing through establishing procedures so that we can approve today a capital project, and Joel has a way of getting it done in 4 weeks.
Bless
So-
you.
Thank you, man. There's another good news update for Burnett Woods and a couple things that didn't make this report. On February 1st, we have one of those term contracts for masonry now.
Mhm.
So we haven't had that before. So some of these walls that we've had to pivot backwards to go through the quoting process just to get a little $5,000 wall fix done. Now we have that same ability within a contract through the city. So we have 4 stormwater contracts where we can do things like infrastructure to do armoring because of stormwater fixes like sinkholes, all of those things we can do under term contracts or emergencies. So we have 2 different mechanisms. If we have terms, if you have the choice to do an emergency, you should, because it saves the limits of your term contracts. But in the event that we don't have an emergency, we still have mechanisms for paving, for restoration, and we're getting more and more as we dive into the system. And Jane and Craig help us identify those term contracts. So now we have a bucket of folks to go to in every situation instead of.
That is really good news.
That is great news.
Right.
Absolutely.
Who establishes those term contracts? Does the city say, hey, we're just going to put $5 million in this, and then it gets allocated to, and the allocation, is it parts get so many, or is it first come, first serve, or how does that get distributed throughout the various
They're
entities?
asking for our input. So we have always, as far as I understand, Commissioner, given input to what dollar amounts we anticipate for each of those kind of contracts.
Okay,
We're working with purchasing much more intimately now to the point where we're talking to them quite a bit. And then they say, how much money do you think you're needing the next year to do restoration and roads? So we're trying to go as high as we can inside of our budget to give us the most flexibility at the end of the year to get a couple things in, because I don't want to run out of anything. We're also actually.
so are those estimates earmarked kind of for us, or can we dip into somebody else's?
They limit us to ours usually,
Gotcha, okay.
our piece of it. So they identify,
Okay.
like, for example, not for a good example, the TPA is a different thing. The Megan contract that they're doing every year. That one doesn't have an identified limit. It's more first come, first served. It's
Okay.
also such a process to get through. We're administering projects as good as anyone else now. We're getting as many as through as we want.
That's a little bit different animal than this other term contract.
Yes, terms are easier to do.
Okay.
Pretty much than even that.
And who decides, excuse me,
Go ahead.
who decides to use the word emergency? How does that word get used?
We contact purchasing. There are some that's, if it's a life safety issue, it's automatic. If there's other things that impede either, progress, traffic, or, functionality of the thing, that becomes where the gray area is. Those are why we've established every other week meetings with purchasing to talk through each one of those.
We make the case for it. And
Mhm.
Yeah,
And then they help us.
they're all emergencies.
And that they don't want to
Yeah,
come.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right.
On a normal level, then
Yeah.
they respect what we say.
But there also have been times where they're like, can you make this more like? Because we'll explain it one way, but maybe we didn't write it in the right way. And they'll be like, no, that's an emergency. Just write it
Mhm.
more urgent. And so we increased our urgency in our writing as well in order to access that better.
Done.
That's
Yeah.
great.
That's what collaboration does, right?
Exactly.
So thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's keep moving here. We're on to, where are you?
I am at the Fulton Pump Station.
You're on Fulton, Zach and Eden Park here. Okay,
Or 5.
okay.
Yep, so TS probably got a picture maybe right after this too. So this is the exhibit I turned in. This is under the third party agreement. Saying you approved 2 of these last month for Warden Nursery and Inwood to fix the pond drainage. This is the third of those kind of maintenance type of items. As you can see in the photo there, the pipe, the sanitary sewer discharge line from the Fulton Pump Station blocked somewhere along that red line. It's corrupt. Andy and his team have done everything they can to have it preliminarily looked at. Everything is blocked to the point where it's not a real solution here, so. There are 2 quotes. We asked Megan to provide us 2 different possibilities. One is from the median there with no stoppage of traffic or very minimal disruption whatsoever. They're gonna dig in the middle of that and investigate that pipe in both directions. If they find that that can be cleared, if it's broken and can be burst and lined, which they do every single day now, they'll do that. If they find that it's broken, disjointed to the point that it needs full replacement, then we have provision in here to go ahead and do the traffic control necessary and the removal and replacement of pavement as necessary to fix that. So I'm asking in this action item with a higher end amount plus a contingency, so we don't have to go through the purchasing process again to get a $2,000 change order on a $60,000 job and waste 7 months. That's why these contingencies are showing up. I believe we're asking for 76,340, which would basically mean they get in, they investigate, they realize they have to shut down part of the road, dig it up, and then put it back with traffic control. That's the worst case scenario, plus 10%.
Okay,
I expect that the project will actually cost, best case, $63,000. That means they can line it and don't have to tear up the road. And in all likelihood, I assume that they'll have to trench in and it'll be $70,000 total. I'm sorry if I confused you.
Yeah.
No.
No.
This is an example then of where in 6 months or a year, there might be $6,000.
Left over.
Gotcha.
And we wouldn't do it every single, we'd wait and collect up a bunch of them and then move them all back into general contingency that we could use for other things.
Sure, but the brain will show us that and we'll know between communication with Craig and myself that I don't anticipate another invoice. So he'll know that that money is actually extra money and we can use it again instead of it sitting out like one of those $30,000 line items you're still
Yeah.
paying and it
Yeah.
won't approved.
Mhm.
That may or may not be for anything tangible.
And the source of funds for this one, where's it
This is
come?
infrastructure and rehabilitation
Okay,
dollars.
so this again is capital money that is sitting there waiting for us to spend.
Yes, this is probably out of 222,000. So the fiscal year 22 money we're still spending
Okay, and the total request is how much again? Just,
76,340. I'm sorry for the.
okay, no, that's fine.
Number, that's exact.
Does anybody have further questions on this one?
That's the worst case though, right?
That's- Yeah,
That's assuming that not only do they have to trench it up, but something else is under there, a gas line that they're gonna charge me $7,000 more to move.
Got it.
So it's
Joe, that's a great way to do it. I mean, I'd rather you do it that way,
Yeah.
you know. Now, if it was could be 2 million versus 3 million, then maybe we. But no, that's great.
And even on bigger jobs, you'll see that we're not even giving 10% because I expect other folks as they're managing these projects for us, and to take some of that contingency within their own bids.
Right.
So we'll lighten those up as we can.
Okay.
In this situation, I wanted to give ourselves a little bit of leeway, so we're not wasting time and have all that stuff opened up. And
Right.
somebody's staring at me, where's my $7,000?
Gotcha. So do we have any other questions on this?
Timing on this one.
Very soon, by the end of March.
Because those restrooms are closed at this point, so get them done before opening.
So the capital funds available for this kind of repair, where would I find these on?
That's a great question, Molly.
Thank you. It is a simple question.
It is.
It's a simple question.
It's probably not even listed on here because the fund is a 222 with unallocated. I don't know exactly where this will come. My next email will be to Jane Gideon and Craig to say, hey, how much money do I have left in 222?
Okay.
They'll give me that. I think it's at 350,000 right now. That's left under the 222. We need to get better.
I think it is important for us to be able to see what we have available that we're being asked to approve funds to be dispersed from. Otherwise, I mean,
Yeah.
I probably have a bigger March.
I think we all agree this is important and it needs to be done.
Yeah.
But, visibility into from what funds we're approving is important.
Initiated or considered. That's all.
So under considerations, we have $100,000 for the Fulton Comfort Station.
So what page is that?
That's page 27.
We had a placeholder number in there, Molly, of 100,000.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
And then you've got.
Oh, you've already got the 76,000 there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
But it won't.
This-
fit into anything.
Exactly, this is in consideration,
Yeah.
so it's not,
Not being, then that means that there's either no money tied to this, which
Got
that's
it.
not the case, or we need to show you where the rest of the money is.
Based upon your questions today, I think I've got some ideas that I'll talk to Craig and Joel to make sure there's another layer to this, right? So there's Craig's reports that we've always had. Joel's developed the brain and the brain informs certain things, but that's how Joel wants to look at it and how Joel and his team have decided to display it. But based upon your questions today, I think that we can then add another kind of lens to it of what's helpful to the board, and we'll work on that for the next meeting.
Right.
Because this doesn't capture the endowment funds either.
right,
So none of that money is even included here, or the old, apparently, 222,000 money.
This is a project-based way of looking at it.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
What you guys are asking for is where the buckets that those projects come from, and we can provide.
Yeah.
It'll be it'll be a different report,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and they will marry up, but I
as
totally
long as they can
understand.
tie
Yep,
together, having a
absolutely.
full view is
Absolutely.
really valuable.
Yep. So, which is why these meetings are so important, right?
Yes.
We get to learn what's helpful for the decision makers. We can provide that lens. The
Right.
data's there. The
Right.
brain is one way of looking at the data that we're really excited to bring forward, but there's other ways of looking at it, and we can provide that lens as well.
Perfect.
Great.
So we have a request on the table from the staff to approve 76,340 for the Fulton Comfort Stations.
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor or any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
I,
Opposed? Thank you, Joel. So now we'll move to International Freedom Park, right?
International Project is just an
Gotcha.
update for you all. We've had a couple meetings. We met with the design and cost estimate with them last week. How to go through final assumptions, and we expect final numbers in the next week, given nature. They're putting together a dual bid system, which I don't think we're going to be able to use. But in one scenario, we would design, build the park, which would start from where we are essentially with the team that we have and move forward. I don't think that the city purchasing is going to allow us to do that. So in which case, we're gonna have to go back and allow human nature to design this, or potentially even take it out for design bids. Such that we have to go through a real design process so that people can go through and bid this, 3 firms can bid this, and it may add a year to the project.
Well, I thought this was all an emergency project.
Yes,
So why isn't putting it back to the way it was part of that emergency ordinance?
It wasn't. And so in the ordinance, what we found out from purchasing is that the ordinance specifically said that the reconstruction of the park, which is they're using different language. This is a great example of how everyone defines emergency. They defined the emergency as fixing the water main. And they said in the ordinance that the renovation of the park would be competitively bid. And it specifically said that in the ordinance. Now, we've learned from that. We need to make sure in the future that we include the broader scope in the emergency language.
but that was required by the city manager's office to approve the amendment to begin with.
Exactly.
We made that decision, apparently.
So we're at a point now where we're working through with them how we're gonna move forward. We've got our preferred way, and then we're talking to them about what their preferred way is, but it's a negotiation. And so likely we're gonna have to competitively bid this, and we're gonna do it as quickly as we can.
Is there actually much design work to it, or is it just kind of putting it back to the way it was?
The design work has pretty much been done from a standpoint that a contractor familiar with the job can go in and build it with minimal survey. That was the point of the first things that we petitioned under the emergency declaration, was to allow us to do this rough order of magnitude costing and this design approach under the emergency award. The last two paragraphs of that emergency declaration say we would love consideration to be allowed to design, build this and save a year and potentially, several $100,000 at least dollars in time, and a year of your park not being open as well. So
Yeah.
it goes on to state that in the emergency declaration, but at this point, commissioners, it doesn't. The initial things we've heard from purchasing is we're not going to be allowed to just continue with the team. As we get more information, I'll add it.
Maybe we ought to have a chart that captures the lost opportunity of these things that we're saddled with the kind of.
Increased cost.
Yeah, right. The time and the cost. It gets pretty crazy at times, when this.
So that comparison is what I'm waiting on. Human Nature is going to provide us what it would cost them to design, build this with the team that's in place and move forward, which could happen. Design or construction would start then in May of this year. If we have to back up and design this such that anybody off the street can bid this, then that's 3 months probably plus of design, plus additional fee for that design. Plus then now you're bidding, going through a full procurement process, and now you're into next year before we can start construction. That's the difference.
So if we've already got the design, why do we have to do design build? Why can't we just say we've got the design, now we just need to go out for an
That's
RFP for
Question
build?
that we're talking to purchasing about.
Okay.
Currently, they're saying because we said so. We're working with them to try to change their mind, but we have all the same questions, which is this isn't making sense for all of the reasons you list. But the reasons they're giving back are you have to competitively bid it in order to get the best price, in order to protect the taxpayers' dollars. And so when you stretch it out, it does start to seem ridiculous. But these things are in place in order to make sure that we follow the law and we follow state law and follow all these kind of ethical guidelines. And so these are always these negotiations. And in this one, we agree, we're fighting to do it quicker, but sometimes there are rules that say we can't. And so we're battling to do this as quickly as possible. But there are times when the law and the regulations of the city don't allow us to. So that's the negotiation we're having right now.
I believe the biggest sticking point is that the law requires under economic inclusion that you know the exact dollar amount of what that's going to be under a bid. And we can't produce that even if I know a goal, so it has to be 15% WB, MBE, whatever the case may be. I could know that going in and instruct our contractors to bid it as such to ensure that those limits are met. But if we have to have an exact dollar amount under the law, it precludes us from doing that. That's the sticking point with this. So.
Well, and I think it's evident from, that as you meet next with the purchasing department, you can say this was a topic of a discussion at the park board. And it's unfortunate that we've got a park that's been torn up for emergency purposes. And now it'll be over a year, well over a year that the taxpayers haven't been able to use that park to its fullest. So you get it and the issues. So we appreciate that you continue the negotiations.
Well, and I think one thing I want to stress is that we're getting way better at it. And we do have these bi-weekly meetings and we are getting things approved quicker and quicker. And there are things that have languished for a long time that we're getting improved at a much faster pace. And we're going to continue to get better at it. And so hopefully in the future, these won't be as fingernails in the chalkboard when we hear about some of these delays, because we'll have them approved.
I don't hear any mention of the city manager in any of this. That person doesn't come into play at all, or can't get things changed, or?
Yeah, they can, yeah.
Yeah, Commissioner. We still have Greater Cincinnati Waterworks too, that's footing the bill for this. We may also have some input when we show them potentially the comparison in cost and the change in time. So we're just not to the point where we can present enough concrete information to them. We will be very shortly within the month.
Thank you.
So is there any revenue loss because of this delay?
Lou may tell you yes, because I know it impacts several of his walks, especially some of the disabled folks. I know one of those, I don't want to butcher it, was either the American Legion or one of those in May or June, doesn't walk, requires wheelchairs, so we have to jump through hoops and potentially change the lane of traffic and things like that, such that they have an adequate surface to walk on. So that potentially is internal revenue loss by our events teams and things like that, but I'm not aware of any events that we're planning there.
It pales compared to the loss of additional costs by stretching this.
Oh, absolutely. Sure. I was just looking for all of the things.
Okay, let's move on, Joel.
Okay, just to update on the Inwood Park drainage repair, we already talked about, that was one you all approved last month.
Yep.
Third party agreement, we've already issued a notice to proceed, I'm waiting a pre-construction date for that, it should be enacted by the time I talk to you next. The Inwood Park basketball court, I believe there's some revision to this, we moved both of those forward as well. After last month, we have drilled down a little bit more into two options, both full courts. One in the triangle adjacent to the Hollister property sale, and one in a situation where we should be last time. Is picnic area. So we met on site late last week.
Early this week.
Early this week. And with Bruce, who are giving us prices to do those courts right now, considering the drainage effects, considering a little bit of the retainage wall, so we should be able to bring you a cost comparison next to those courts. Once again, we're talking about term contracts. We could actually enact this under a term contract and have it built outside of a bid. And then we have that within our budgets right now. Energy improvement, and we would essentially use some of the funds from the Inwood Park, GFCO and ARP funds that are set aside for the city.
Similar to California Woods, we have $4 million set aside for Inwood Park. We're going to use some of it for these basketball courts to ensure that they don't wait for final park
Good.
renovation, but they're basketball court brought back sooner. Our next steps on this are having staked these out. If we went down today in the wet, we could walk around and kind of visualize the basketball court. Joel's team's measured them out and they look great. While Bruce is giving us the pricing to
Sure, let's see the drainage problem.
my plan is to hold basically an input session with all the interested parties, right? And so we'd invite the board for you all to come down and look at the two sites. We'd invite the community members, we'd invite the interested other partners such as Uptown that's creating the apartments that are on the Hollister property that we sold. And we'd have everybody down to kind of discuss and look at this stuff. And then ultimately, based upon the bids that we get back and all of the feedback we get at that meeting or that on-site tour, Joel and his team would make a recommendation for what is the best option. We would then bring it back to you for approval or further discussion based upon the numbers we have. So that could happen as early as next month.
What about publicity for the community engagement you described?
Correct. We want to make sure we get that out to as many people as possible. And so as we're about to hear, Rocky's team's really good at getting the word out about stuff that we do in the city. And so we'll make sure we do that. I participated in 2 online community council meetings where we previewed these, where we got feedback that I shared with you at the last meeting. And so I think the next step is to kind of really visualize it, because until you're standing there in the site, it's easy to look at a map from above and be like, looks great. But once you're there and on site, like everything, there are many opinions. The opinions are varied. They don't all line up. But hopefully when we're all on site, we can share our thoughts, and come to a spot where we're all shaking our heads on what we're
Fighting about it.
Yes. Very good.
Any more questions on that one?
Thank you, Joel.
No?
Yes, ma'am. Jackson Hill Park, this is maybe a new one that you haven't seen last time. Tia, I think there's a couple pictures of this one. The building department alerted us to an issue in the corner of Jacksonville at Mulberry and Rice. There's a retaining wall that I believe was an old back foundation. Yes, sir.
And say it again.
It's an old back of house foundation.
Huh,
So I think we're looking at, Tia's gonna pull those up. I think you're looking at essentially the back of an old garage in the house. There you go.
Mhm.
So you're looking into the back of a 2-stall garage. And you can see the huge cracks in that wall. The building department's concerned that that's gonna come down. This is gonna be absolutely an emergency. So we've already assessed that. I've met on site with the Department of Transportation and Engineering, Chris Hammett, geotechnical engineer. We talked through how to assess this, how to properly take it down, what to do, how to enact the drainage and all that stuff. And Andrew Campbell has already drawn this. So essentially, we're gonna levelize the concrete wall in place and the floor that you see out to the right of way. So that there's no slippage down that hill. we're essentially just taking the corner of the hill and putting it back. So all that will remain in place. Any void space that concrete will put in flowable mortar in there, so there's no compaction after that. All the void space inside of that concrete, as good as we rubblize it, there's still going to be voids. So we put some stuff inside of that, just flowable mortar essentially, fill in all those spaces and then compact dirt on top of that, the slope back there. So that's an emergency just to take that project down. We don't have to do anything with the drainage there. We're not going to interact with the sidewalks or put any of that back. And there's no concrete involved with this. So it's essentially just bringing in material to do it on site.
What will be your exterior? Because it abuts an old stone retaining wall. What's going to be the
Yeah.
exterior of the corner now?
The exterior of the corner will just be grass, and then we'll probably have some plantings or landscaping down there. All that will be filled back in with grass.
Interesting. So the
So you take
retaining
on the
wall
stone,
isn't
too?
necessary.
You're gonna leave that retaining wall.
Retaining wall.
You're just gonna enforce against it.
Yes,
Okay.
Okay.
And then just infill
the other wall,
the bottom. Okay.
yes.
The concrete's not the retaining wall. The concrete's just.
The
that's
back
what
of an
needs to
old
be-
building.
Exactly, yep.
Who owns this property?
We do.
We do, out to the right way. You do. I don't.
Yeah.
This park, it was amazing when I got into this, just how far that park goes down. Because
Yeah.
this is the park that you access up from
Christ Hospital.
on Auburn by Christ Hospital.
Oh, yeah.
It extends all the way down that hillside
Huh.
to Mulberry.
Mm.
And somehow when that building was vacated, or whatever, we inherited that corner.
Oh, whoopee.
Yeah, that's the rest of down the
Yeah.
street from there. That's what that wall looks like.
What's this concrete area used for? Is it parking or what? Nothing.
Should be nothing. Nefarious activity mine is what I can say. Garbage I saw on the ground.
Yeah, so all that busted up concrete, that just remains like that?
Yes. So we're gonna take it all out because that would induce a shear plane. If we put dirt on top of it, that would give it a place to fail. So we're gonna take that bottom out and then ensure that that's jagged enough to hold everything else out on top of it. And we put good clean clay, it'll compact on top of that and leave at least 6 inches of topsoil over that so that Dave and his team have stuff to plan on.
Got it.
Should make it look a lot better.
Cool.
Admittedly, I didn't know this existed the last time I talked to you on this.
Definitely has never been on my park store.
For Gill Road, it's just a quick update. We're working toward 50% plans. We had a meeting actually yesterday with KCO. They're working through that design. One thing I want to mention on that one specifically is that there is also a lot of talk with the Office of Environmental Sustainability, OES. Ollie and his team have been awesome helping us with that project, and they're helping develop that. There's potential to do some really cool sustainable things on that site. And we're working through that with those folks right now.
Is there any concern about the township out there? Because doesn't this,
Mhm.
that deal
Traffic.
goes, is there any discussions that we have to have with them to expand what's going to go through that deal road?
My understanding is we've already spoken with the township in advance, like a year ago or so. But what we are going to do, and I have to give Commissioner Thomas credit for hammering this home with me, is what we will be doing is further outreach when we're about to start construction and let folks know that construction is about to start. You're going to have this new amenity in your neighborhood and make sure that folks kind of aren't asking questions or being suspicious, but instead they know about it ahead of time and they kind of know what to expect. So as with all things, we want to be good neighbors.
We'll have more updates as that one takes development. We're close to 50% plans on that right now. So we should have some graphics for you in the next month. The next one is a big ask. This is action item A on the agenda. This is headed into their redoing
Fun
the
stuff.
DNR headquarters in District 5. So we're asking, the bids came in essentially 2 days ago. I think we got them yesterday morning first thing or late Tuesday night for the final bids. We knew that they were going to be much higher than expected a week ago, but we didn't realize this high. Final bid for the interior package came in at $1.65 million. We're asking for 1.7, so essentially a $50,000 contingency. Some of the things that contributed to the overages, I've reviewed all the individual disciplines that they provided quotes for. The HVAC system is almost $300,000 by itself, just because of the nature of the history of that building, wanting to ensure that all of that piping is brand new and there's no remaining issues from what happened before. That was a must. That was a big ask in the beginning with a big price tag. The other one that we weren't expecting really was the roof, and having the copper gutter stolen and the front of that ripped off added another $200,000 to $250,000 to the cost of the project and what they had to do to replace that with a standing roof. So those two big things account for a whole lot of it. Inflation accounts for a lot more of it. And timing and how we do this is accounting for some of it as well. So I certainly don't want to make this a habit of being 2 times more than I think something's going to cost. We're going to refine our estimates, move forward and react.
No surprise to us.
Was there no insurance coverage for that?
It's a great question. I do not believe so, Commissioner, but I have not looked into that.
The city is self-insured.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
imagine. It's self-insured.
Yes.
Police are self-insured.
We're really excited about this project, and as Joel and his
Yeah.
team have looked to kind of value engineer this. One thing I'm really excited about too is we sit in this amazing building, right? That was designed in the 50s and built and is still good and awesome today, right? With minimal upkeep. We did a new roof last year. We have this beautiful building that is a thrill to come and work at. And I think that's our same duty to not only Crystal and her team now, but 50 years from now, Crystal's team, to make sure that we do this right and that we aren't just taking an old police station and being like, I don't know, we'll dust it, we'll clean new paint, some new spackle, and we'll be good. But we're building out a new elite facility that's going to be, best in class, and that people are going to be proud to come work out for a long time. So, while this is more expensive than we wanted, I don't think that it's does anybody any good to try to like nickel and dime this down and it's going to take some pennies. We want to make sure we do this right. We want to make sure that we give, again, not only a good home for our team now, but a good home for our team in the future. So we're really proud of kind of setting the standard for our new facilities for our team.
And Joel, if you could break down source of fund from the sale of,
Correct.
if you could tell us where we are with
We
it.
get about 2.1 million from the sale of the Reading Road facility. And of that, we're going to allocate 1.7 of that today. And again, hopefully we have 45,000 sitting in a bank account that in 2 years, we're like, why is this line for District 5 on here? That we then reallocate, but we're going to ask for 1.7 of the 2.1 today.
I know I mentioned this, Jason. I think I would like to see an overview of what those improvements are. It's a big amount to approve with no scope of work, no materials.
Keep water around it. Here we go. We can pass this around. This is the bid we got back.
Joel, you think the 50,000 contingency is
In this-
enough?
In this situation, yes, because as I mentioned before, this is under the third-party agreements. Some of what you're paying for is that oversight. And there's a general conditions clause within that, as well as a fee for doing this. But
Okay.
essentially, it allows one contractor to oversee all disciplines, and they build some contingency.
So they've got some of it packed into their,
In
gotcha.
which case, otherwise I would have probably asked for more, like 150,000, like a
Yeah.
10%. But in this case, because they're covering most of that themselves, they better get it done with what they're asking.
Gotcha.
Those would be like change orders or things we find once we're
Time is of the essence, is it not?
back. If we have to be out of this facility by January 1 for them to start construction, we have to be out of the Reading Road facility by January 1, which in itself is an extension from like an April 25-ish date. So we got extended to the end of the year. In order not to have to move Crystal's team to a bunch of tiny spots, working out of closets and working, garage space around our entire system. We need to get this project done realistically by the end of November so that we can move in the beginning of December and make sure that we're out of that site by January 1.
But this contract is only good for 30 days, correct?
Correct. The bid is only good for
Through March.
So
That's all. people-
Through March though. So let me ask,
got it on Tuesday night.
Cut out Tuesdays,
Right.
Essentially 30 days.
so to Commissioner North's comment, I mean, $1.7 million to just say, give it to us. Even though we trust you, what would be the impact of approving today versus approving March 15th or whatever our
It
meeting?
starts to threaten that end of November timeline for getting this done. So once we approve this and Joel gives them the go order, they start to order things like HVAC, which again, we're competing with everybody that wants an HVAC.
Yeah.
We need new windows, we need the new roof, we need all of those new materials. So having recently gone through renovation of my home where we waited on cabinets for 6 months, these things have serious lead times, and if any one piece of it isn't done in time, then we can't move Crystal's team over there. So this is one where it's outside forces. The city got NIOSH. That's a great economic development win for the city to have that facility here. But as part of that, we lost the Reading Road facility, and now we're really up against it.
What's the square footage of this building? It doesn't even say on this bid anymore. Not that I can see.
3,000, one level.
So there's two levels.
How many square
I
feet?
think it's 3,000. It's essentially a house. It's not very big.
This bid is out of sight. I mean,
Sorry.
there's $400,000 of general conditions and feet in this bid.
Yes, ma'am.
25% of the bid. For 6,000 square feet, 1.7 million. I mean,
I think they
this,
said $430 a square foot.
like, I hear you on the urgency, but this is like mind blowing.
I'll say the same. If this was any other situation, wasn't losing their home, I would get back to the drawing board and bid this 3 different ways. The only reason I'm even recommending approval of this is time is of the essence.
Right. I mean, you could tear down this place and rebuild it for less money than this bid is.
Very much.
But then why aren't we considering that? I mean, this,
Because we didn't know it was gonna be double the cost. We thought as of a month ago, we thought it was gonna be 800,000. So again, this is an example of this is a project that was started by predecessors of ours. One of the first things my friends joked about me is you're not actually gonna put books into that because District 5 had a really bad reputation among the
Right.
police force.
Right.
But this was a project and a decision that was made previously. And again, time is of the essence. This is also a great example of we oftentimes are frustrated with how purchasing wants us to do things and how they want us to jump through what feel like hoops when they slow us down. But this is an example of we're using that third-party agreement where there's $12 million worth of spending capacity through this one contract with Megan that we then go out, and this is one of the biggest projects it's ever had. Oftentimes that's $50,000 here, $65,000 for the sewer for Fulton, or $70,000 to redo the drain from the Inwood Pond. This is a huge project. And honestly, one of the things we worry about is they wouldn't approve us using 1.7 million under that. We had to fight for that. But because we only went to one vendor, we're at the mercy of their bid when it comes back. We don't get to compare it to other things. So it's the other side of that, go out for 3 quotes. In this case, because this is a true emergency, we will be without a home for the team if we do not get this done. This is the other side of that. Which isn't ideal, but there's a reason why they often try to make us bid all these things out, is to make sure this doesn't happen to us.
Yeah, what would be the downside to not having a place to work? We too are moving our offices and everybody's gonna work from home for about 6 weeks. So what would be the downside?
So this
I
is,
mean, this isn't the size of a contract to handle one contractor.
Mhm.
So they just give us your number. It's very large.
I mean, the downside would be that the urban forestry team, the urban forestry team, the Department of, or the Office of Land, or the Division of Land Management, Conservation and Land Management would be moved around. We have contingencies for them, but we'd have to enact some, so for instance, the plan was to put potentially urban forestry. We could maybe move them down to Sawyer Point, but then we'd have to do some construction and renovation there to get that ready for that. We could move the Department of Land, or the Division of Land Management to, there's the innkeeper's house, or the groundskeeper's house at how, but that's a facility that hasn't been used in forever. So we'd have to put HVAC in that. We'd have to renovate that. So then we start to have these individual contracts to change cost there. And then also just the time lost of moving twice. So it's something we can definitely do, but as we add all those in, we see those costs elsewhere. We have to spend 100 or 200,000 in order to get some facilities ready to be a temporary condition before eventually moving to the new facility. That cost that we've saved by bidding this out and by losing that time might be eroded in that.
well,
Because it's the other side of, we're frustrated that costs could go up at International Friendship Park if we waited out longer. We have that same threat here. And that's one of the first questions I asked Joel is, if we were to bid this out, we lose a month or two of time, do we gain that much back if we have to then spend that on these other facilities?
but we do have the opportunity to go back and negotiate with this proposal, don't
Not
you?
this one, apparently.
No, this is their bid. So
Is there a clause in there that says if they don't get it done in the time frame that we need to have it done, that they get punished?
We have not enacted liquidated damages under this yet. I think that's possible within a final contract. I'm not sure how that works under the third party agreement. They have a full agreement with a number, and I don't know what it says inside of there. I would almost doubt that it does have liquidated damages, but I'll check that.
My guess is they're protected for if through some negligence, they don't get it done. If they order new windows and new windows just take a long time to get. You know, we're all dealing with that, right? The timeline that I just got new windows at my house. So again, I can talk about my own personal experience, but
Don't order a stove. I'll tell you right now. Don't even.
we ordered windows last July and I got them installed last week. And
Yeah.
so the vendor said that in years past, it would be 6 weeks from order to installation. And now we're looking at 7 months. And so we live in different times. And again, this is a project that spans several years, right? The decision to, I think the city landed NIOSH and I look over at Jenny just for the historical reference, but I think the city landed the NIOSH in like 2020, maybe even earlier. And so this has been a decision that's been made a long time ago in order to make this happen. And it's one of the first things that I was meeting with Crystal and her team on, which is, all right, what are we doing? What's the plan? Why is this taking so long? And then one of the things that Joel worked through was getting the architect, KCF, to get us the plans back. And we actually had to get a change of who was in charge of the project at the upper level of KCF because we were having trouble getting that back. And Joel finally was able to get that done, I think November, December, and then the new architect got us the drawings back. We got the drawings out to bid last month. And again, we're moving as quickly as we can because of this timeline from the city.
So the bigger issue here is process.
Mhm.
You know, it is the specific project, but then you're hearing our pushback from the standpoint that it's never a good scenario to walk in and have a board be asked to approve $1.7 million without, we don't even know, we haven't seen a layout, we have no idea if you are. And I trust that this isn't happening. I'm trusting that we are designing a functional building and not going
Definitely have the
overboard. But how do we, and to your point, this isn't a new project. This is a project we've known about for a long time. I'll bring in the discussion we had last night about this, that this is interior. We haven't even talked about exterior. We haven't seen what the plan is for exterior. So how do we going forward take steps so that we are informed along the way so that worst case scenario comes down and we have, you know.
I mean, we have the floor plan and the designs, and in fact, we can move on to other items and we can, you know, Joel can get that pulled out and we can show it today. Right? I mean, that's something I've seen before. It exists, you know what I'm saying? It's just a matter of what we had ready to present and we can pull that up quickly enough. So, I mean, that's definitely something we have.
And the other point is the potential for having to put people out and double move is just a potential at that point. I mean, I don't know if there has been a project timeline developed that if a 30-day delay, that this puts us out 30 days. I don't know what is the planned occupancy date based on this.
Joel, do we know that based upon this bid?
What's that? When we
Plan
can,
completion date,
yes, December 1st.
December 1st is the plan date according to this bid.
And we have to be out of there by January 1.
That seems to be so close to me, and I've never had a project come in. Never is a stretch. Rarely do projects come in on time, and when you've got that kind of window,
They're gonna be.
it looks like, you know, what's the chance that we might have to occupy something short term? It's just,
I mean,
especially now.
there's one person in the room that's the most nervous about that, and that's Crystal and her team. And, you know, I appreciate their kind of, you know, I mean, just talking to them, that they share that stress. And so, you know, there have been several decision points through this, you know, up to like mid-January, we sat down and we had okay, we're going to put this team there, this team there, this team there, because again, we didn't know if we were going to be able to use the TPA contract for that. We were still waiting for KCF to get us the final design drawings at that point. So, and we found out right before Christmas that we were going to get the extension from April to January. So where we sat in November, December, when I'm only a couple months into this job, was that we were definitely going to have to do the temporary conditions. Now, at that point, we thought we were gonna spend $100,000 or $2,000, $100,000 or $200,000 for those temporary conditions. And that we would then spend $800,000 for the final build out of Ludlow. We got the extension, we found out we could use the third-party agreement contract. We then got the design document, you know, again, all of these are these layered kind of decision points. We're currently at a point where honestly, I mean, there's good news and bad news. The good news is we got an extension to January 1. The good news is we've got the plans from KCF after a lot of wrangling. The good news is we're allowed to use the third-party agreement. The bad news is the contract came in way over. But the good news in all of this is that we do think currently that we'll be done by December 1 and that we won't have to move anybody temporarily. I do think that, let's see how to say this. You're right that projects don't always come in on time. And we have that month of how quickly do we have to move, and do we have to move during Christmas time or up close to the holidays? Or at the last minute, do we say to NIOSH and to the federal government, we need like 2 more weeks, right? So we'll know as we go through this project. With all projects, you'll start to see what that timeline looks like. One of the things we've been looking at a lot is the timeline for Lytle Park, right? And can we get that done by the November deadline date, or will we get it done earlier, right? And there's a million decision points that happen through that. So we're going to know this, and there's going to come a point where at some point we're going to know, is it looking like December 1, everything's great, or is it looking like December 10th, or is it looking like January 10th? But then that kicks into a whole new level of decision points, right? Which is, all right, can we have everybody work from home for a week or 2 in January versus have to set up new satellite offices? Can we have to set up 10 desks in here for a week or 2 versus 3 months? I don't anticipate, and I guess I would lean on Joel for this, but I would not anticipate that this project's going to be 3 months late, right? And so by getting this done in that window, we get to make a lot of easier decisions, right? So it's one thing if we go back to the federal government and say, hey, we need until July 1 of next year. It's another thing to go back and say, hey, I know we said December 31st, but like it's going to be December 17th or January 17th. It's going to become a different level of negotiating and making kind of easier hard choices than longer term hard choices of we actually need 3 more months, or we actually have to find temporary homes for folks for a long period of time.
Question.
Oh, go ahead.
You know, the $100,000 to $200,000 to fix if you had to, you know, spread out and move around, is
That's
that
very rough.
right? But is that kind of throwaway money, or does that really have a permanent enhancement of those facilities that say, hey, you know, we weren't planning on putting a new HVAC system in here, but now we got it, and potentially in the future there could be some value to that, or is it just call it wasted and sunk and disappear forever?
I think it's 2 things. One is that it does improve those facilities and it allows them to have future uses, but they're not future uses that we currently need.
Right.
And so yes, it will be, you know, every dollar spent has some future value, but not necessarily something that we would use or actively.
You might not use it for 5 years or 10 years.
The other piece is the time and opportunity cost of now Joel and his team are working on 2 or 3 temporary construction projects in order, as they're also working on the longer term construction project. And they're managing all of the stuff that's happening out in the park.
And I guess the other thing would be, and Molly would probably be in the best position to, you know, answer this, is that 400 and something a foot. You know, if you go out and bid, just assume we'll go into temporary housing for a while. What kind of saving opportunity is there to get that 400 and something down to? And I don't have no clue what a reasonable, if you would tear it down and start from scratch and or have a competitive bid, what that potential savings may be from, you know, this bid to something else, as well as I think the worst case scenario is you go forward with this and then we got to do the double move anyway.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, and I don't know the timing of those temporary fixes and when you're going to get a lens on whether we're going to make it or not, then are those facilities going to be prepared to accommodate, or is it basically, all desks in here or work from home or what is that solution? Because I would hate like hell to pay this much money and then still have the double move.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of the worst of
So when
all.
we were doing the double move, part of that was we had to be out in April. And so because our team obviously is busier
Mhm.
in the fall, in the spring through fall time than they are in the winter time. And so when we had to be out in April, we were full speed ahead on, okay, where can we put people? What do we have to do in order to be ready by April? Since we got the extension in December, we have not been pursuing that.
Okay.
And it's my, it's not my thought that we would have to pursue that under this. I mean, it's something would have to go very wrong for us to have to do temporary conditions, because again, for a month or so, we can absorb that into, again, it's joking, but desks in here,
Mhm.
right? We can find spots for folks to work for a month in January. Now in April or in May, that month is very counterproductive for us, and that's why we had to be ready well in advance and be moving down that path. If things were to slide and we found out in like October, we actually need an extra month, we could absorb that into that winter time in a way that we couldn't in the summer. And so it's not my expectation. Something would have to go very, very wrong, which then gets to like liquidated damages or something really being wrong for us to have to do any sort of a move that would require those upgrades. We would be able to absorb that into the winter time.
So again, we don't even have a plan on this building. I see we've got a floor plan here. This is 3,000 feet on one floor and then there's like a lower level.
Is it a full basement though?
Full basement.
Okay.
Will that be occupied by people working?
Basement will be usable as locker rooms, and storage for the moment, tool storage, and first, everybody upstairs
Okay.
for the occupancy and
So how many people are gonna be working at 3,000 feet?
is it Bristol, 30 people in there?
That's
Can't even see that.
what? How many?
We have about 30 people between green space, conservation management and urban forestry.
That will be working full-time in this building?
Not full-time because conservation and land management, green space, they're all, and urban forestry are all field crews.
Right.
So there's not an option to really work from home. These people are like, they're in the field,
But they're not at this building.
Sorry,
They're not gonna be at this
they
building.
would be reporting to this building until Deal Road is finished. So this would have to occupy our entire team until we get the Deal Road annex built out, which would then host.
But where I'm going is they're not gonna be coming to work in this building. They may report in, hi, I'm here at work today, I'm clocking in,
But they don't
I'm
have
clocking
that.
out. They do not have to have
The number
a,
again, 30?
they can report in anywhere,
No, not everyone,
right?
but maybe 15 desks.
15 desks in this building, right? I mean, I understand that this is a tricky thing to have to do and have a temporary, time. But to sign up a contract that is quite extraordinary. I mean, we got $250,000 here in an HVAC line item for a 3,000 square foot building with a basement. Okay. This looks like a contract that was not competed for. It's not a contract that can be negotiated. It's an extraordinary expense. And we've got a gazillion other things to spend money on. I have a very difficult time with a plan that started with NIASH. We're selling this property thing, and this is going to be like a windfall for us. We're getting all this money for this land. We're going to be able to invest it in a new space. And at least my presumption was we're going to have some left over, spend toward our parks. We're in the opposite scenario now. No competition for this contract. I just have a very difficult time saying that this is a good idea. I understand the challenge.
I wouldn't have sold Red River Nash in the first place, but I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
that's just.
right.
I was gonna say,
A long time, but again, we are where we are now. This was like one of the pickles that
Well,
I.
and just to remind everybody, we were given the concept that it could have been taken by eminent domain.
Mhm.
So it wasn't that we were jumping. It wasn't a free. So.
and the reason the city wants them is,
It's a lot of high paying science and engineering and
so the city benefits from their coming.
Absolutely.
it'll be part of that new innovation corridor that's at that Reading Road and MLK interchange.
So I guess, why can't we go back to the city and tell them what our problem is?
Well, I think that's an option, but again, that doesn't answer, it's just shifting the liability, and at the end of the day, it's all taxpayer money.
That's right.
And if the question is this a reasonable expense? for that size facility, or if we have another option, it should be looked at, but
I misspoke. It's 4,600 on the first floor and 15 on the second floor.
The basement.
Bill 60.
Still six, but it's
yeah, I didn't think.
basically fire range in the locker rooms and the
Yeah.
restrooms,
Mhm.
but still crazy expense.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Commissioner, but the alternative is to go back and we can absolutely do that. We own the plans. It's not as if we're tied to any of that with them. We can go out for bids
And that's, it would be when we start, right away. If
immediately.
this isn't the plan that
What was the date of this bid?
Tuesday night.
Oh, it just.
Why you didn't have any. You got
I was gonna say, well, construction prices have come down a bit. Like, it could have been even worse.
We were waiting on
This better.
Well, and as we talked about using the TPA, so this was a decision we had internally in January, which is so again, to take the timeline in December, we found out we get the extension right before Christmas. We then were like, okay, we don't have to worry about the temporary conditions. We'll lead ahead. What's the best way to do that? Joel was like, I think we can get this under the third-party agreement, which is the fastest way because we don't have to go out to bids. So then we were, hey, purchasing, can we use the third-party agreement for a project of this size? Again, oftentimes we bring you like $70,000, $65,000, $40,000. And that's when we thought it was $800,000. And they said, yes, you can't use that.
I have some more information that may impact your decision. So with this, we're already reacting to that. The next line item in my presentation is what are we going to do with the outside? Because you asked that question. Well, instead of doing the same thing.
Are you saying this bid doesn't even include the?
for the outside,
Nothing on the
I
inside.
can already tell you where I am on that.
The thought was that if this is only the interior, to bid out the 4 or 5 pieces of the exterior that we have to do under existing term contracts. So you don't have these general conditions or the timelines. Essentially, I can bid everything else we have to do out. On the term contracts, but not the building.
And this is exactly the opposite of what the city purchasing typically does. I mean, if I say to any contractor, give me your price. I'm not gonna bid it out to anyone else, and I'm not even gonna negotiate with you. I mean, this is the losing.
Versus International Friendship Park, I'm trying to essentially do the exact same thing. Because the only thing that you bypass in this is the DEI determination because it's already been made. The difference in IFP is I'm saying, what do I need to provide you with those kind of determinations? And they can't tell me that. So the cost of doing that and bypassing that is what you're seeing from my very, very limited.
I mean, I can name on one hand over the past 5 years, how many projects we've approved at like this value.
Yeah.
With a lot more diligence.
This may be way out there, but why wouldn't we just rent some trailers?
So again, when we were looking at.
Way out. Right.
How's that for recruiting and retention?
Pardon me?
We were looking at temporary conditions. Trailers were one of our options. We're gonna have some of the teams work out of 3 trailers at Deal Road. Again, this is a cascade of decisions that at each point we turn. And so when we learned we weren't going to have to have temporary conditions, we've been full speed ahead on getting this site done. The bid is way more than we expected. And so we're now at a point where we can, I don't want to say go back to the drawing board, but we can pivot again. And so what we're recommending is moving forward with this contract because we have the money within the sale price to do it, to build a first-class facility that's going to last for a long time. And so that's what we've recommended, but we can go any way you want to. And so if the board is uncomfortable with the bid, and I agree, I'm not excited about it, but we have these other considerations of the time factor of making sure our team gets into a facility by the end of the year. But if the board is not comfortable with the bid, we can definitely pivot and we will instantly start working on the RFP or the bid process in order to get bids back based upon these plans. Hopefully we will see. I mean, I assume if you decide not to go forward with this bid, it's because you hope that it will come in cheaper. So that will be our hope, is that we'll get 3 bids back. Those bids will see significant cost savings and hopefully not too much of a delay in time. What we'll then start doing is planning for what does that look like. So with the bid will come a finish date, and what we'll be asking for is to be done by December 1 still.
Commissioner, I gotta clarify, because I said something wrong. when I said it wasn't the exterior, it is the exterior of the building. It's not the site.
Oh, like, yeah.
All the exterior.
It is the gutters and all that stuff. It's
From the
not,
parking lot.
25-year lifespan, all new facilities for
Yeah.
25 years, updated the new stuff. It is the whole building. It's just not the three things we have to do on the site exterior.
Which is,
Fence, fix the side, so that tree trucks can get around on the one side, the highway side, and also gating, which we're.
Listen, I don't want you guys to take this the wrong way because you tee up this stuff beautifully better than it's ever been done.
Yeah.
This particular item has not been set up for success here. That is for sure. We don't have square footage of the building. We don't understand the scope of this project. We haven't seen any floor plans. And we've got a bid that was put together at the last minute that, in my estimation, is out.
And I am assuming too that you went back to these folks and said, okay, guys, this is ridiculous.
I don't know if they're.
Retro engineer it, you know.
We did.
again, so the way we move forward, and we do have the plans to go through, and we can always provide as much information as anybody wants to see for all this stuff, right? And so we have those plans and we can look at the floor plan now. But if we decide not to move forward with this bid, the next step would be to go out and get 3 bids and see if we see the cost. Our hope obviously would be that we would, but we'll be back then next month with one of those bids that would be the lowest and best for approval. And our hope would be that we'd be able to bring that in again by the December 1 date. Now, I don't think anybody thinks that if this current bid approved tomorrow would be done by December 1, we can necessarily guarantee that. But what we'd certainly be working on right away is to try to either get an extension with the federal government again, or to come up with potentially trailers or other temporary, working with desks in here to get that done. And we do everything we can to make that happen.
Well, you can ask them for an alternate to get it done by December 1st. There's a price, everything comes at a price, right? Somebody can get this done by December 1st. You may not be willing to pay for it, right? And you may come back in a month with, the lowest bid being something close to this, and then we've wasted a month. But I certainly would have a lot more comfort knowing that this went out on a competitive basis and we've got the best price, and we're doing our duty here with.
Is it realistic if we put it out to bid? What is the realistic turnaround time that adds to not only the getting the bid back, but then I'm assuming then we have to go through some other movements or hoops that to get somebody to approve it besides us? Or is it such that we get the bid back and we get to choose the best one and then move forward? Or does that have to go to purchasing?
Yeah.
And then they're going to have to do their thing. And so is it, by doing this, realistically, does it add 3 months to the process
Yes.
versus kind of they could get started tomorrow if we signed off?
I would say you're at a minimum of 3 months.
Okay. So by doing that, you're pretty much assured that you need to get into secondary, housing and a second move.
Construction minimum is 6 months. That's what I know. 6 to 8 months is the timeline. So you have a month or so. Right now is March. It's tight, as you can tell. I've been racing towards this. I know it's under prepared. You got the bid on
Yeah.
Tuesday night, but essentially, yeah, you're 8 months from being constructed.
Well, an idea, and this will be my last comment, I swear, is getting an emergency contract to commence the demo. Because demo's demo, that's not really where you're gonna spend a lot of money, and it could keep your project on track while you're bidding out the improvements. So it's an idea.
Go back and get bids. Thank you.
well, let's,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
listen, if you want to push this to a vote, Jeff.
I personally, unless I'm not, I would be willing to table this till next month, which in essence is not approving this month. We can either not approve the 1.7 requested, or you can withdraw your request from us.
So before we do that, so Joel, you're saying that if we want to go out for 3 bids, you think it'll take 3 months to go through the purchasing process for that, to get,
Yes.
even though we have the plans done, we'd have to.
I'd say so.
Okay,
From what I know from Lytle Park, having plans in hand to approval in a contract was 3 months.
And then purchasing basically awards the contract, right?
Yes.
That's the way it goes.
Evaluation threats the bid sheet based on the documents that we provide.
Is there a way, I mean, obviously, Lytle Park wasn't as time sensitive as this. This, if we miss a deadline, there's extra cost, there's extra hassle, et cetera, et
That
cetera.
was the only reason for the recommendation was time. I think I said that.
Yeah.
first. I know it's not a good.
I'm just wondering if,
Everything from my-
if there's, if it's, and I don't know purchasing, but if they would have the ability to fast track something that typically might take 2 months, focus on it, get it down to 2 weeks? Or is that's
I
just,
mean, we would try, but it wouldn't be 2 weeks. You know, we try everything we can. This is something I've already talked to the city manager's office about a lot of times in order to get the extension. I've already brought up the cost overrun with them and started the conversation about additional funds. At this point, it's just, you know, this was the hand that we were dealt. It was one of the, you know, people were bringing this to my attention and talking about the extension. You know, I think Steve Pasella had the first conversations with the administration about going to them and getting the extension back in June or July. And we finally got that done as part of the purchase agreement that was finished in December. Council had to approve the sale in, I think, October or November. Then the purchase agreement had to get done, and all of that were factors that were delaying us from being able to go out to bid, including trying to get the plans from KZF, which there were delays on. So, I mean, yeah, there's a lot that's not perfect with this, but this was the hand we were dealt. And again, you know, the board is the decision makers. We're happy to pivot and to do different things. We're just presenting you with the facts we have with our best recommendation about how to move forward. You know, and maybe we are overemphasizing trying to get the team in place over the winter so that we don't lose time in taking care of the parks and then being able to be, you know, ready to run and gun next spring. And that's kind of where we're at, which is that we've looked at, you know, and the first question I said to Joel was, if we took this out to bid, are we going to get a lot better pricing? And Joel was like, we could get better pricing, but you add time and you might get worse pricing, or you might get the same pricing, but spend 3 months on it.
All those are potential outcomes.
Yeah, we factored all that in, and that's why we brought you this recommendation. We're not excited about this. We'd like to have it much cheaper and happen much quicker, but based upon all of that, that's what made us bring this recommendation forward.
And when you screened, when you saw this to these folks, they didn't flinch at all,
It did not.
so they could care less whether they get this work. Is that is that the message I'm getting?
Whatsoever. I think they want to work with us, and several of our partners are the subcontractors underneath this, so they use some of our preferred vendors in preparations of their bids. It's certainly a substantial contract almost for anybody, but we'll get right back out and bid it 3 other ways. That's what the board wants to do.
No, my point was
Yeah.
that they wouldn't come off at all.
When we ask for value engineering, some of the disciplines we understand don't have very much wiggle room. Even in asking for general conditions and fee reduction, we didn't get much leeway whatsoever. But I haven't negotiated my hardest yet either. So like I said, we got this information on Wednesday night and didn't want it to wait another month for you at least to be aware of the situation. So
Is anyone inclined to approve this?
No, I want to argue with them.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah,
I'm gonna table it,
that's fine.
and you can
Sharpen our pencil.
either sharpen the pencil, bring it back to us, or you figure out.
And might there be an opportunity to get that January date extended to
Again, you
60,
know.
90, 120 days?
As of Monday morning, we didn't know quite what we have to do. And so, sure, I mean, there's a lot of options on the table.
Right.
And so we'll explore all of them. So,
And within the next few weeks, if you determine that you really think this is something, if you need to have an emergency meeting of this board, we can do that. If that's, but take the steps that you think need to be done to bring us up to speed and discussions with the city. And if you find that in a couple weeks or whatever, if you don't want to wait till the next meeting to come back to us with this proposal or alternative, we can call a special meeting.
Last
Okay.
year we were having weekly meetings, so. this is
Yeah.
not that bad.
Okay, let's move on, Joel.
Just a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Who would be the authority that would come in and remove us from this, from the building that we're currently in? Would that be the
Yeah,
Hamilton County Sheriff Department?
That's a great question.
Police Department? I mean, at some point in time, you know, what do they say? Possession is
Not
nine
against
tenths of the
the law.
law. No.
What's the, I suppose the military. Let's hope that there's no tanks. We wouldn't want to put her through that.
I just have a feeling
Thought,
they're not gonna need this facility as urgently as.
I'm with you.
Well, which is
Federal
guy that's, you know.
Yeah, 2 years, that's
So,
right.
you know.
Something with it.
Exactly.
It may be 2 or 3, who knows? So it's a
Yeah.
possibility also.
Okay.
And probably we'll go for bids.
Krista, don't pack your bags.
Thank you for the extra effort.
I mentioned the exterior, that's what I was talking about. It really means the site, always what I was talking about there. Those are the pieces that as of yesterday, know these numbers. We asked KDC to break out what they're giving us anyway for plans and the specific smaller needs that we can just go bid piece by piece and go to our term contractors for, you know, pavement and have them do that piece without the general conditions or any of that stuff, still under a term fast, but without that general condition, third party agreement. Similar with the fence, we can do that. And some of the other stuff that, you know, gates on site and the drainage piece, we can do that under the stormwater term contract, so not to go through this piece again with another big plan set in general conditions. So we'll do that once we get sorted how we're gonna do the building itself. Current construction projects. All Park, I believe that is complete. That was the phase one roofing work where they removed all the pavers on the top of the roof, took off all the saturated under membrane insulation and replaced all that stuff. So I've seen most of that. I didn't see it when it was 100% complete, but it was looking good. The parts that were done when I saw it. Lytle Park renovation, the update on that is that Abraham Lincoln was successfully moved last week. He's in place and that went without a hitch. They moved him earlier in the day than was anticipated because they had a windstorm that night. And the crane operator was getting a little bit antsy. They decided it was better to just go ahead and do it instead of moving the crane back for another $15,000 the next day.
And was that location where he ended up?
4th Street, looking straight.
Yeah, I've been there. I saw it. Has that changed? Because in the diagrams and everything, it looks like it's changed.
I think it's exactly where they said it was supposed to be.
Okay, take a look at the photos. I mean, take a look at the all of the signage that's there on the fencing at the park. It looks different. It looks like it's got grass all around it. In all of that presentation. We're not gonna move it again, but it looks different. It looks different.
The original plan had him kind of looking at the buildings and our team did rearrange that to make sure we continued to look down 4th Street as he was in his older position.
Yeah, no, to me, I like but it's not in a place where there was green all around it in all of the diagrams. So,
I gotcha.
okay.
And they've still got plenty of site work to do. They're gonna recover Abraham Lincoln, they're gonna clean it up, ensure there's no splatter on any of it and recover it so it's protected. But all the stuff around it's gonna completely, they just put in the foundation, put it there. So
Cool.
expect everything to change, Commissioner, beyond where Abe is. And the next month, just update for the residents of 4th Street and for you folks. They plan on doing underground utility work starting sometime in late February. So we've had the dog park essentially open on the tap side of the park for the winter, so that the patrons of 4th Street, those neighbors didn't have to walk very far to let their dogs relieve themselves. Bruce is still gonna work with us and keep a little spot open as much as they can. We're already even identifying places that we can almost keep a spot for dogs almost through the whole project. But we do anticipate that at some point here in March, when the weather's getting nicer, we'll close it down completely for a little bit. So there may be a couple weeks where it's completely shut down to get those underground utilities in, and then Bruce gives a little bit of the site back in relief of the pets and things like that. We'll do everything we can, but we gotta keep safety first.
Gotcha.
Let's see. Warden Nursery is under construction. We have a pre-construction meeting set for the next couple of weeks to do the work that you all approved last month, like the TPA to fix the concrete in front of the garage and for the dumpster pads. So that one will start at McGrish. was complete. I think I mentioned that last month, that it just happened after the board packet last month. We have a couple pictures of that one, Tia, if you want to show them. That was just the sinkhole that was fixed at McGrish Park. Turned out really well. They concreted everything in, so the riprap's not gonna move as it floods. Everything looked really, really good to me.
Perfect.
March development focus, we're still working towards crafting an RFP for master plan.
But that was the question, is that's supposed to be a fee, right?
Yeah, I don't know how we're gonna do that yet. I looked at there's qualifications, and I don't know how we're gonna ask for money yet, but we're still working towards how that's gonna be. What we're gonna ask for inside that master plan. Let's see, I have one more action item that Jason mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. After this report was put together, we got quotes back for the pickleball. There's additional stuff I've mentioned to you all before, as we reworked the courts last year, put in that facility, it changed a little bit of the drainage against the end where the seats are. So to fix that, Alita's provided quotes to come in and put in a trench drain in that, redo all of the concrete, some of which needs done anyway. It has an exposed aggregate look inside of that. They'll match that exactly. Drain that out to the south where the storm sewer ties in. And that work has been under quote for a couple months, but we'd like to enact that. I believe that will all fall within what was donated, not donated. I don't know what to say with that, but it was $75,000 from the Board of Visitors, essentially exactly for this work. We wrote a letter telling what we're going to use it for. This will cover all of that.
So what is the ask? How much is that project going to cost?
$62,000.
So you're requesting $62,000.
56,383 is the quote from Alita, and I'm asking for a $5,600 10% essentially.
Wasn't there an additional 12,000 too?
12,000 is a different line item that I don't need board approval, but I'll tell them about next.
Okay,
The 3 access points is a separate quote. We're going to do a set of stairs and the accessible walk coming in from the south. Elevate that to the court, which are right now 6 inches lower than they are. That's a different quote, but that one's $12,000 as well. We got those back at the same time.
so effectively, we're gonna spend a
70.
little under 75,000.
Yeah.
For these 2 projects, which was what we requested for this purpose, which will allow there to be firm. I didn't even notice it. Because you don't necessarily notice when you have to step up onto some concrete off of some dirt, but certainly if for anybody that has any mobility issues or any needs that assistance.
So that will make this fully ADA accessible.
Two different from the center of the court.
Okay.
Both ends, which right now it's only from either end.
Okay, so today you're asking us to approve $62,000.
Yes, sir.
The source of those funds is grant money from the Board of Visitors out of the Bicentennial Commons Trust at the Greater Cincinnati Foundation.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions from Joel on that one? If not, is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second? We have a motion and a second to approve your request for $62,000 of the funding received from the Bicentennial Trust. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Great, thank you.
I believe that's all I had, commissioners. Do you have any additional questions for me?
I know it's gonna be hard for you to leave the.
Let us leg rest.
I know. Thank you so much, Joel. That was a lot of ground to cover
Yeah.
today.
And Joel, these are the things that this board has been wanting to be.
Big time.
Yeah, so thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You know, the only visitors we have in the audience today are related to item D and E. Sorry for the HR and CEV presentations, but if we could move up D and E so that if we have visitors that need to go on about their business. So Craig, you want to
Yeah, absolutely.
present that to us?
You want to come up here? I know Edward Charles is big going on here in the review. Parks Foundation did a wonderful job in supporting the park board in the fourth quarter, and a couple of the key items is the Edward Charles statue. It was the artwork that was donated, and the Parks Foundation obviously procured that and worked with the artist. So that was around $153,000. Additionally, we had in-kind donation from Park Foundation working with Mastery as well as myself and donating over $5,000 for the reading program.
That was Matry and Dynegy, which was the other sponsor that came in. Great partners for us.
So the total amount of Park Foundation for in-kind donation for fourth quarter was $235,136.70. That was with the approval of the
Perfect.
Great.
I don't think we're going to deny.
No.
that, Especially with Laurel Park, that was a project that was long time in the making and great outcome.
Yeah.
So can I have a motion to accept the 235,000 in kind?
So moved.
Second? Second. Commissioner Linder, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
Next up is from the St. James condos, working with Parks Foundation as well. This is a grant application for $6,432.52 for the Trail Gardens management to maintain the Liberty Garden. Park.
And we have, I just want to acknowledge Mary Kay Levinson and Liz Schur, who, can you tell us what is involved with the park? This is a Freedom, Liberty Park, right? Liberty Garden. Tell us what you do.
So it's been, we've been working with the parks over 12 years and with, it was really Frederick's landscaping, but he sold the business, Fred Holman sold the business to Schill. So that's why the request is for Schill. We garden in the park, and then, but we also we collect money from the owners of the St. James in the Park, which we donate to the foundation, and then request.
Great.
So the only issue we have is not really with the park board, but getting through the city. And when we don't get the money on time, last year, plants that we received had been ordered, but they didn't install them until much later, and they were
Beat up.
not in great shape when we got them. So timing is an issue for us.
Perfect. We will work on that end of it, but thank you for 12 years of collecting money and donating to Cincinnati Park. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
In creating that garden.
Yeah.
Did sign off on the waiver, which is like 3 months in advance.
Oh my gosh.
That is the new collaboration that we have in the park board with our city partners. So thank you. So we have a request. We have a request to accept $6,432.62 for the Liberty Garden. Any questions, or can I have a motion?
So moved.
Move in second.
Yes.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you. And thank you. And feel free. We've got a lot of interesting things left to go, but thank you. Thank you for coming here, and thank you for your work. So let's move back then to HR, and I see Derek has joined us. So Derek, you're up. Good morning.
Morning. Is it?
It's still morning. So
Yes.
So you guys have the memo that I've developed.
yes.
Yes.
We provide a little bit of overview information instead of speaking to it. As you can see, currently we have some positions, I think we're at 21 last time we met at 17, and 3 of those full-time vacancies. The only reason they're on here is because 2 got approved today to hire. So the other will go next.
That's great.
The second, so it's more about 14 vacancies.
Nice.
Just keep in mind that we are entering additional requisitions for positions which will jump this up because we got the other departments that are on the same.
Or new, like the grant writer.
Right.
Yeah.
Grant writer, since you brought that up. I'm collaborating with other departments because the city does not have a classification grant writer. So the problem with that is it's posting it in a way that we can get one calls that are needed. So I'm part of the fire department, recreation, water work, HR supervisors across the city to see what are they doing, because there are grant writers in the city. Some of them have not responded, so I'll be creative. My own partnership with HR. So I met with them this morning. They're going to help me get a position posted. So we'll go through the requisition process that we'll try to expedite to 2 or 3 weeks, and we can post. So once that's posted, I should have an update for you next commission.
What will the title be?
I don't know.
Right.
Sometimes they do like parentheticals, which takes less time creating a classification to get it.
So what are grant writers that are employed by the city? What are they, what's their classification? What is their title?
One department was a senior administrative specialist, the other was a supervising analyst, sorry.
Got it. Grant writer.
So.
Typist.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Job description for this grant writer position that we want. Has that been developed?
I don't know if it's been.
Have you seen it?
Does it
No.
get described as
That's
whatever
not the
that other
job
posting
description.
is, and then the person has to kind of figure out that that really is grant writing? How do you say?
Is it 100% grant writing or is it 80% something else?
Okay,
And then in the falls, then we also add additional supplemental questions and say, do you have experience doing this? How much experience? And that's what I do personally to kind of dig and see who's best fit.
got it.
Derek, excuse me. Have you written the job description for this position? Do we have a copy of that?
So that's what I'm saying, the city has job descriptions and I have to pull from one of those already existing job descriptions. And then there's two ways you can go. Create a job description like you're speaking to, but that takes months because it has to go to, we have to partner with the union, which has a monthly evaluation process, partner with HR, make sure the salaries align with other classifications. It has to go to city council, it has to be approved by the HR director. It just takes a long time. And that's the process we're going through currently with the Arbor series. So we're reclassifying or we're attempting to change the tree maintenance worker classification to arborist. And that's a totally new classification. And we've been doing that since February. We're finally at the final stages to get it.
Oh,
Not done,
Okay, got it.
it's approved by HR, then it has to go to council.
So by using a pre-existing job description for a grant writer, we can move this thing along
Mhm.
and then put out what we want and then
Yeah, I think the issue will be, what are we really looking for this position? What is your vision for what this person is going to do? And that's where, yeah, from a technical city employment standpoint, we get it. And if you can find one of those job descriptions, that's great. But I think what we're looking for here, from what I understand, is just a paragraph of, if you were putting this in the newspaper, how would you describe what you're looking for this position?
We can provide that.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
okay, thanks.
it should start off with needs greater than average resilience. As it takes for all employees of the city. So I admire your resilience.
We're glad the situation, they're allowed, they're going to help us get this moving.
That's
We
great.
won't have to deal with that 5 to 12 month period of creating new one. We have a couple of career fairs that we're going to. We have Cincinnati State, February 16th. We have some people today that's going to walk through. We have a lot of people across parks that's helping us. We're creating marketing material with the CP team. They're doing it in 24 hours. We have flyers and stuff like that. And I've never been in a department with a marketing team, so I'm doing it myself. So that's what I'm saying.
I know CRC puts on the mayor's job fair, which is usually down at Synergy. Yeah, let's make sure that we're there too.
There's other departments having career fairs. Central HR, I believe, is planning a career fair. So, and they always send us emails and we're going to participate.
Great.
But the problem, we want marketing material, we want big banners that we're creating. We have some cards that they've created, but we're passing out. I think it has helped us attract more candidates because we started a little bit early recruiting because we typically have issues. But we've seen a jump in applications. So we had about 172 part-time applications.
That's great.
But that was the end of last week. They had only been posted for probably 3 weeks. So I do think we'll have a lot more part-timers coming.
So that's for about 80 positions, correct?
Yes.
So seven different roles, but about 80 positions across multiple layers of department.
Gotcha.
So you're feeling optimistic about the seasonal help that is coming.
I do.
Years ago, it was not easy.
Yeah, we just got to get out there.
I really think those signs that they created to put strategically in the different parks is helping. The managers are asking them, how did you hear about this? They're saying, oh, I saw a sign, so.
That's great.
So they have the QR code, the pop up on your phone. Those are the things that they're doing.
Is the wage rate posted so that they know what the pay?
It's on the job post.
It is, okay, so that's good when they know what they're getting into and you got almost 2 to 1. Better than 2 to 1, that's a good
We
sign.
post the salary.
Yeah, good deal.
And it's our next agenda item, but I love the latest posting on social media, the Oprah Winfrey with you get a job and you get a job and you get a job. That's our next agenda. item. Go ahead, Derek. I'm sorry to.
And we're going to Cincinnati Public Schools in public
Yeah.
on the 22nd. And we are partnering with the DAP program to like attract those engineers, architects. And we have probably about, I'll add a lot of this data as I think through it. I'm like, they would like to see that. So there's a lot of data that I can add. How quickly in comparison to previous years, all these part-timers actually coming on board.
Yeah.
So we can see how we can do better or if we are doing better. So we can actually see it.
That's great.
Remember, Eric's only been with us in parks for about a year now, so.
Oh, we've seen the improvement since you've been here, so we're well aware of when you came up. That's great.
Appreciate that. We've had a lot of civil service, long-standing positions. It's just me, some of it's loving, these managers being out there straight.
Just take full credit. That's it.
So we had 28 full-time positions over there. So it's about 2 positions, which is good.
That is good.
I won't talk about it. But that's about it. Is there any additional information you would like to see next board meeting?
Appreciate it.
think this is
Appreciate it.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
Very
comprehensive.
Yeah.
Thank you. And 3 candidates that are coming on full time, the additional guarantees our current MW with us, Alexandra Siegel. And we have our Matthew Schiller. He'll be our senior engineering technician coming up.
Interesting to know what all those steps are. It'd be interesting to know what all.
very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Just get blood pressure.
Okay, now a fun presentation for a great accomplishment.
Yes,
Mhm.
we could use a little fun.
No more sewer main.
No more sewers. We want to talk about.
So Jason, he's broken his streak on the 90-minute meeting.
Keep it brief. No, really just here to share some good news. And it's not sewer lines or anything like that, but something very important to us and our users is when something goes wrong or closes, we've got to have the ability to quickly tell people about it, right? And so that's really where our social media and our digital media comes in. So we didn't apply for this recognition. We didn't ask for it, but we were very pleased to learn that we were ranked 3rd best parks and rec agency in the country for social media. Third for Facebook, 3rd for Instagram, 1st for YouTube. And it was by a leading industry expert, Next Practice Partners, who's a leading consultant. I've seen him present at NRPA, which is National Parks and Recreation, OPRA. He's been all over the world. His firm works very closely with our industry. Is very well respected. And they just did an analysis. They looked at what all the other cities were doing. It's adjusted for population. And they noted that we had this success. And it's but Nilay Bhatt is the name of the head person there. So when we sort of arrived here a few years ago, we knew we were underperforming in this area big time. And it's really good to see this success. I also want to mention number 1 on the list was Cleveland Metro Park, and they have a zoo. It's very hard to compete with the zoo, right? If you put Cincinnati Zoo and the hippos and everything else in with our numbers, it would be much different. So we're going to look to build on that. But this really is just to provide some context. This is extremely important for us because about 85% of Americans now have a smartphone, and it is the way that people get information. That over since 2016, that's been a 9.5% growth average every year in terms of smartphone usage. And you might say, well,
And in the past, these numbers have come a long way as well, hitting the population, about minority population, about low income. If you look at the numbers really across the board, everybody's got a smartphone, everything is moving digital. More and more people don't want to have to, fill out paper forms. I just finished coaching my son's third grade basketball team, right? And we teach them we're teaching passing the ball. You don't pass the ball where your teammate is, you pass the ball where your teammate's going to be, right? And so that's something we're really trying to stay ahead of. And it's a great validation for us and our team to see that has been recognized. Obviously, it's super important because it's how we have been selling out our Explore Summer Camps and events. It's a big part of why we're helping to see the success where with Chrome breaking revenue records, Relief Trees. We used to working with our partners like the foundation, we're fantastic partners in Mantry. We used to have to spend some advertising dollars to help get the word out. Now it's like the trees are gone because we're effective in getting it out there. So it is important to our organization. And it's also at the same time helped us reduce how much we're spending on advertising dollars. So over the last 5 years, we've seen a 70% reduction in what we spend externally on advertising. 70% reduction from about $400,000 to about $120,000. So we're able to do it in-house and be much more effective. Within what we have left, we've seen an 80% increase in digital advertising because that's, again, we're passing the ball where the player's going to be. And we can see the numbers and see that's how we're having success. So up on the screen here, I know you guys put this in your packet as well. I would note here, Instagram really is the one thing we looked at. Man, people love posting. Back in 2019, people love posting pictures of the parks and what's happening in the parks. And we made a very intentional effort to grow that area. You can see the numbers there. And, we stay up on current trends as well. So, initially it was pictures, right? We focused on pictures, and then we started to see in the numbers, actually people like short videos, right? Reels, TikToks. So we've pivoted, we've adjusted to stay on top of that trend. You can see the numbers there that speak for themselves. I mentioned 2023, keep in mind, we're only a month and a half into 2023, so we're expecting to see this growth to continue. We've got the net numbers below. We're 300% up in impressions and engagement. So the last thing I want to mention on this is I've got to just thank the team, and I've got them here today. Sarah and Kelly, stand up. Sarah Monson, stand up. Kelly, Andrew Clark couldn't be here today. He's at the job fair and is actually doing a Facebook Live, or he was a few minutes ago, so he couldn't be here. We're hoping to bring him on and on board soon in a greater capacity. And these are the folks. It's a team that makes it work, and they're so good at keeping up on trends and over posts, all the things that we come up with. We do get to have fun. I think we're probably one of the few divisions within the department that just gets to have brainstorming meetings where we come up with fun ideas. Because if you're constantly on your feeds or doing nothing but selling tickets or talking about trees or programs or closures, you don't see the growth in the numbers. And we're very intentional about having fun, being engaging, and trying to stay on the front curve of that. So I really appreciate the time that Jason gave us today to talk about that. And obviously, appreciate all of your guys' support on this throughout the year. And we're going to continue. We're going to move up. We're gunning for number one.
Yeah.
If you have any questions or anything, I'll be happy to entertain.
Shouldn't you include the zoo?
The zoo, I think so.
I mean, come on.
So at least Cleveland shouldn't be allowed to there. So I'm going to talk to Neelay. We're going to work on that next year.
Super.
Yeah, this is really good. I really like what you guys have done. It is just a tremendous improvement versus when I first came here versus now. And I like the mix that you're offering. The videos, the educational pieces are really good. The staff highlights, I think it's a very nice mix. Yeah, good job.
Well, I sure appreciate it. And it's, you think you're doing the right stuff. We see it in our own numbers, but have it validated externally when we even ask for it. Thanks to all very much.
Great.
Good job.
Thanks.
Hey, Director, you've got one more item that you were going to add to our approval list. Something about a meeting time?
Oh, yes, correct. Spring is in the air. Pitchers and catchers reported recently. They report Arizona. And we have a commissioner that will be on the West Coast for our next meeting virtually. And so I'd like to propose that we delay next month's meeting from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. and have next month's meeting start at 10 a.m. Which is still quite early on the West Coast, I should point out, but it's not as early.
I have no,
It's good with me.
Ask for a motion to.
Yes.
Yeah.
So moved.
and a
I'll
second.
abstain, needless to say.
You don't need to abstain. And I'll second that. I assume Molly will be okay with this.
Well,
We've got a quorum.
We got a quorum. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. So one-time adjustment at this point, we can see how it goes,
Mhm.
10 a.m.
Yep.
Okay. Then we'll turn it over still to Jason for your director's comment.
excellent. I don't have a ton this month. Point out that Bunnies and Blooms is full speed ahead at Crone Conservatory. It runs through March 12th. And we're already seeing great interest and support, similar to the Butterfly Show, which is just a cool new thing. People are loving checking out the bunnies and seeing how the bunnies interact with Crone Conservatory. We've already brought in as much revenue from this as the entire spring show last year, which is 2 weeks in,
Wow.
which is 90,000 already. And we're on pace to make about 200,000 from this show, which is just tremendous. And that will get us to the $2 million, which is our record number from 2022, which we'll be able to achieve already, right? And so we're looking.
Jason, I'm sorry, let me make sure I'm understanding.
Yep.
By the end of March, we will be matching 22?
The year starts in July.
Oh, that's
So-
right.
End of
Okay,
March, we will match our
Thank you.
2022 number.
okay,
And we think we're going to be at $2.8 million for this year, which is just tremendous.
Okay.
And you
Great.
mentioned this last month, but make sure whoever came up with this idea and Crone people and the people that are promoting it, it's who can't love bunnies and who doesn't want to come and see the Crone show? So kudos to all of you.
Yeah, Mark and his team over at Crone are just doing a great job.
Absolutely.
Also, Derek mentioned, but we're hiring. So we're looking for folks for that. So if anybody knows anybody that's looking for work, or feel free to continue to share that around. Also, summer camp registrations. We're making preparations to open registration for our summer camps on February 25th at 10 a.m. The camps are offered from June 12th to August 4th at all of our nature centers for children 3.5 through 15. Prices range from $8 to $150, and all the information is available on our website and all of our social media. I should point out that all of the division managers and a couple other staff went up to the Ohio Parks and Recreation Association meeting in early February, late January, early February. We had a really great time. It was great to see the width and breadth of the industry. It's easy to just be here and we are Parks team in Cincinnati, but to go up and see, how many thousands of people are dedicated to this statewide. They had their third highest event ever. About 800 people were at the event. It was just really great to meet a lot of vendors, meet a lot of our fellow parks enthusiasts from across the state. And I think a lot of folks gained a lot from that. And then last up, biochar. We talk about that a lot, but I wanted to let you guys know that we're actually taking a team to go visit a biochar facility in Pennsylvania next week on Thursday and Friday. So we're traveling to Reedsville, I believe it is Reedsville, Pennsylvania, to check out biochar facility. So I have a lot of information to bring back and help us continue to refine that and make sure that's a great project.
It's great.
Take pictures if they allow it.
We'll take one.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
very good.
Thank you, Director. Any questions for the director, or I will open it up as part of that for any other discussion from the commissioners.
Any new news on the boat dock?
We are meeting with the boat dock folks later today.
Okay. And is there an agenda for that meeting?
I mean, it's just moving forward with the next steps on that project, and we'll have more to report at the next meeting.
Okay, great.
I'll report that the investment committee did meet a couple weeks ago, reviewing the fourth quarter results and the performance of each of our fund managers. We benchmarked one against the other and against a investment benchmark that we set up. And I don't think anybody was pleased with how the market reacted in 2022, but fortunately, markets have bounced back a little bit. And I will just say our endowment funds are in very good shape at this point in time. Any other input questions for the order?
Thanks for the conversation.
Oh, yeah, thank you to the park board for the swag. So with that, somebody needs to tell Molly that she has an extra hour to prepare next. We moved just for next
yes.
month,
Okay,
meeting time till 10 instead of 9,
okay.
just for that 1 month. Nothing else to come before us. I'm going to say we are adjourned. So thank you.
Okay. 11:20.
All right, onward.